troubling things have been afoot for quite a few weeks now.
Troubling things, bad times in the economy, a lot of financial strain going on.
Certainly.
And I've personally been wondering how I can spend money that I don't have.
Yeah, and, the economy hasn't necessarily been good for most people for quite a while.
Yeah.
We feel the squeeze. We have been for a while, not just, the Trump-Biden years, but even before that 2008 recession. We've had all kinds of problems. But I would say that the news we got this week makes it worse.
I think so, too. And it's not directly oh, my God, we're in a recession right now, Germany, hyperinflation.
Yeah.
It's just something that I don't like.
Yeah. If you don't know what we're talking about, DoorDash just announced that you can use Klarna to basically take a loan out to pay for your food delivery order.
Guys, please do not pay in for your Taco Bell. Please do not put on an Applebee's order for Klarna Afterpay, dog. That is crazy.
Yeah, and I know the typical libertarian response would just be, well, if you don't like it, then don't use it. But
no, that shouldn't be allowed.
Pyramid schemes are illegal for a reason.
Yeah.
People will get tricked and fall into it, whether it's out of convenience or just not understanding what they're signing on to. It's how the economy works. If people weren't easily tricked into this kind of stuff, then maybe capitalism would function properly.
Exactly.
But it doesn't.
The average American is some absurd amount in credit card debt.
Yeah, it's a debtor's economy.
Yeah, most Americans don't have the financial responsibility to be able to have and use a credit card. How you should be without taking on debt that they can't afford on there. And I think the same thing rings true for Klarna Afterpays.
Yeah.
It's just the same thing in a different principle. It's like putting DoorDash on a credit card, except somehow worse.
Yeah, please don't do it. It's a bad financial decision. But I do feel comfortable saying that I don't want to live in a world where this is even allowed.
Yeah.
This should not be possible.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have an economic system where people feel like they need to do this because money is tight or whatever. This sucks.
This sucks bad. So bad, actually.
It sucks really bad. And Klarna came out with this big, first of all, Klarna.
Yeah.
Why is it called that? It's hey, bro, catch the show on Klarna. But they came out with this big blog post explaining their decision, saying oh, we're not predatory, crediting agencies and whatever. But it's I'm pretty sure how the system works is you get your latte on Klarna. Mm-hmm. You pay for it over, monthly installments of $3 or whatever.
Yep.
And if you miss an installment, interest goes up 20%.
Is that how that works?
I'm pretty sure.
Because I've always wondered how they make their money.
Right. If you have to wonder why they make or how they make money, it's probably a scam.
I was going to say they're either selling your data or they're getting kickbacks from DoorDash for more people thinking, oh, I can get fucking big boy now.
Yeah. Well, if they weren't charging interest, then they wouldn't be able to make money.
Yeah.
They would lose money over time because of inflation.
Or it's just a kickback model. Or it's okay, because people bought this through Klarna paying for on DoorDash, DoorDash is going to pay Klarna for them bringing more business to their service.
Maybe.
Number one business podcast, number one economics market forces podcast.
Yeah.
I don't understand why
microeconomics.
This was touted as some huge big win for investors of DoorDash too. They're oh my God, this is going to be huge. Are there really that many people that they think are out there that are not getting their DoorDash, Uber Eats delivery? Because they couldn't pay in for it?
Well, I mean, DoorDash has gotten more expensive over time.
I was going to say, DoorDash is absurd.
Food is getting more expensive, and if you order a meal for your family through DoorDash, that could easily get to $100.
Yeah, because restaurant meals are already dumb.
Yeah.
And just the DoorDash fees on top of it, plus tip, because you should always be tipping service workers and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. DoorDash, Uber Eats, all those services are damn near unaffordable in general.
Yeah, the DoorDash delivery drivers getting fucked, the consumers getting fucked, and the people that run DoorDash are making off like bandits. And I get it. You can take credit out or take a loan out for basically anything. Amazon's got payment plans. Basically every company where you can buy something that's more than $100 has a kind of payment plan you can enter into.
It's I'm not against paying force. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not inherently bad, but something feels bad about it being done for food.
Yeah, for a McChicken.
Yeah. And again, I know you can just not do it, but I don't want to live in a world where this shit's allowed.
Yeah, when you get cold fries and are in debt for 2 months because of that, I don't know, man. That's a sign of the times, really.
When you've brought the socialists and David Ramsey together on their hatred of this policy, I think you're doing something bad.
I was going to say, David Ramsey, Caleb Hammer got to be just fucking kicking themselves talking. They got to be screaming when that news got announced.
Yeah.
And low-key, David Ramsey gives bad advice, but if he's telling you not to DoorDash like that, I think you should listen to him.
I just saw a headline that he was this shit sucks, basically.
Yeah.
But probably because
sucks.
he hates the poors, not because
because the poor shouldn't eat.
Yeah.
A side note, did you see David Ramsey? There was a clip from his show that went viral because somebody asked him hey, as a Christian, how do you reconcile having so many homes and investment properties. Yeah. And he said something along the lines of, actually, I don't own those, God does. Yeah. I'm just managing them for God.
That's the most cop-out answer ever.
I can't even say this is a cop-out. Like, that's just go.
Well, yeah, I don't think he believes that, though.
You can't.
I
don't think any person could believe that.
Yeah.
But man, it's a bad time out here.
It's a bad time. Don't get your burger
So when he's
financed.
On the right side of an issue,
yeah,
you should know.
Don't get your burger with interest rates on it, folks.
Please don't.
It's bad. And this is, I will say, happened in Trump's economy.
In Trump's economy,
yeah,
people have to put their fries on paying for.
That's right. Welcome back to the show, everybody.
Welcome.
We got quite a lot to talk about this week. We got to talk about deportation news.
So much.
We got to talk about the abundance agenda from the liberals that I think is slightly notable, maybe a little bit of inside baseball, but we'll talk about that a little bit later, guys. How about the Department of Education?
We got institutions bending and capitulating to Trump.
Yeah, and I think some geopolitics a little bit later on.
And the number one geopolitics podcast is unfortunately back doing what they do best.
Yeah, so another episode of Hito coming at you. But before we get into that, as always, I'll remind you to become a patron, especially if you want early access to the episodes. Please. It's on Patreon. Go check it out.
I would implore you to do it.
Yeah.
I would implore you to do it. Make me happy.
I'll also say, you might remember about 2 weeks ago, we hit our goal on Patreon.
Ooh.
And now we're here to announce that the artwork contest is beginning now. You can enter your submissions in the description below. There's a little Google form that you got to fill out. You can complete your file, PDF, PNG, whatever it is, upload it to the form. And in a couple of weeks, we will choose some front runners, and people will vote on, whichever their favorite one is, and that's the one that will go up in the studio.
Forever, perpetually, until the end of Hito, which would be the end of days.
So if you're interested in that, the form for that is in the description, will be in the description of this episode. And I'll just say, don't try too hard.
Yeah.
Because the rewards aren't that crazy. Whoever ends up winning will get 2 free months of Patreon access. That's early access to episodes.
That's monetary.
But there's not much in the way that we can really offer, so don't go too crazy. Artwork is labor, of course.
Other than our undying affection.
Yeah, undying
allowed
affection. You'll be really immortalized. Cool. I mean, living forever is cool. Living forever is cool.
They say a man dies twice.
Yeah.
Once when he actually dies, and then again when he's forgotten. So
exactly, and you'll never be forgotten 100%. If you're forever immortalized in the studio. So that will be in the description. That'll probably be open for about 2 or 3 weeks. So get in and enter your submissions. They can be silly, they can be goofy, they can incorporate Hito lore, they can not. It doesn't. Whatever you think. And,
whatever you think, and makes it through the great filter, and then it gets voted on by the community.
Exactly. So that's in the description, and thank you all again for getting us to our goal.
It's pretty good and pretty fun, and we love to be untypical leftists and make good on our promises.
That's right. Also remind you can get some Hito merch in the description, get Ground News 40% off. All of our links are down there if you want to check it out. And the final way, the most enduring way you can support the show is by leaving a 5-star review on Apple. We have a lot to read today.
Yes, we do. You've heard our cries.
Right.
There's a cycle. It's much like the debt cycle and the recession cycle that goes on in the U.S. economy. But there's a cycle of reviews. Yeah. There are times of abundance, there are times of feast, and there's times of famine. Mm-hmm. And right now, I can say comfortably we're in a time of feast.
Yeah, we got lots to read today. We got 4 on Apple, 2 on Instagram. So this first one from Danae. They say, after hearing that there weren't any Apple reviews in the last episode, Do Nothing Democrats, I've decided to finally write mine. I absolutely love this amazing podcast, and you should too. I've been a fan of the pod since 2022 after I discovered Jeremy Engage on TikTok. Being from the hellscape that we call Oklahoma, I can't go a day without hearing a marble for brains take on politics. So I absolutely look forward to listening to my favorite white boys. In fact, I've listened to the backlog twice. I've finally shed my Wednesday weenie title and become a Sunday supremacist, and I encourage you all to do the same because this pod is awesome sauce. 5 stars across the board.
Yeah, it's got to be rough out there living in Oklahoma. Yeah. You got, what's his name, Ryan Walters?
Ryan Walters, superintendent.
Just a position of power. And you also got a whack fucking basketball team, man. I really needed them to I made a March Madness bracket for work.
Oh,
and,
damn.
You always got to throw in a random upset in there. So I was like, you know what, Oklahoma, they got it. That was a devastating game.
Mm-hmm.
Devastating game.
That's tough.
This next review by Ian, 122086, number one news media source in the world.
True.
I condemn Hamas and all acts of political violence. This pod helps me absorb the ever-chaotic news cycle every week in a humorous and relatable way. Being a business school student in the South, I am not surrounded by the most politically inclined people, and this parasocial relationship has helped me better define my own opinions. Thank you for your efforts in woke brainwashing the youth, and I am glad I took the Hito pill. Shout out the rule of law.
Shout out rule of law.
Shout out the rule rule of law, I gotta say I agree, man. I gotta say I'm glad that you've let us get our fingers in the folds of your brain and make them deeper.
Yeah. Business school, though.
Business school.
I wonder how that comports with your values. Anyways, this next review here from Bradford D, Hito 2028. First and foremost, I condemn Hamas and all acts of political violence. I stumbled upon the Hito Boys on Instagram Reels and have been hooked ever since. This podcast delivers real-time political news with a sense of humor and keeps me informed of our country's impending doom. We don't have much to look forward to until 2028, but at least I know every Wednesday a new Hito pod is dropping. That's right.
You know, even 2028's got me like just in a love-hate relationship, you know what I mean? Because it represents opportunity that maybe the Democrats could make the right choice, but it also represents the Democrats putting up Chuck Schumer.
Repackaging the same shit and trying to sell it again.
Putting up Gavin Newsom, which has become more... We've never been for Gavin Newsom, by the way, and I hope the backlog reflects that. I think the backlog should reflect that we aren't for Gavin Newsom. Maybe it was different when he did the Ron DeSantis debate, but at the very least, brother can't be having Steve Bannon on his podcast.
Yeah, how long till it's Nick Fuentes on that podcast? You know what I'm saying? That's it. It's crazy.
It's ridiculous out there. This last Apple review, Gays for Hito by Aaron0601. I condemn Hamas and all forms of political violence, and I especially condemn the Alien Enemies Act of 1978. No, brother.
See?
No, brother.
We get confused, too.
It's hard. It's hard. But
1789, I believe.
Sorry to say, I am a Wednesday weenie. Maybe someday I will upgrade to a Sunday supremacist if the price of eggs goes down. Newsflash, it hasn't.
Tough.
I'm a gay and physically disabled man who grew up in rural Ohio, deep sigh. I've been trying to hold myself more accountable to keeping up with the political landscape, and these Michigan guys make it so digestible and enjoyable. I am unfortunately seeing a lot of my gay friends and colleagues get less and less interested in politics, but hopefully I can bring the weenie/supremacist population up soon with some new Hito heads. Keep up the good work. P.S. I was living in Ann Arbor until recently, so I was super upset that you guys were at Farmington Hills. Totally would have been there if I was still in Michigan. Apparently other Ohio folks did show up, so guess I'm just lame. Love you guys. Take care.
Yeah, we had an Ohioan and an Indianan.
That's crazy.
And a Michigan person too. But we had some folks from around the Michigan
Midwest
area.
Representation.
Yeah,
the tri-Michigan area.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear some of your folks are becoming like uninterested in politics, but of course, you know, it's an off year.
Yep.
Midterms aren't for another like year and a half. And until then, we're going to stew in the background.
That's right.
Slowly building up power until we can leap out of the bushes and attack.
We're slow. It's like when you play Plague Inc. You know, you remember that game?
Exactly. you infect everybody, then you invest in the lethal skills.
You save up all your points infecting like everybody, and once you get to like 98%, you just ramp up to kidney failure, total organ failure.
That's the science that RFK uses. That's the shit he uses. We got one on Instagram here, two on Instagram. This first one's from Gabe. Gabe says, "Hey babes, this is my 5-star review since Spotify is silencing queer voices.
Wow.
First of all, I condemn Hamas and all forms of political violence, despite the fact that everyone who is ruining the world has a name and a few addresses and has to sleep eventually. I condemn that.
I condemn political violence.
I condemn that. I wanted to give a huge shout out to my friend Ellie, who told me and many other friends about you guys and has been listening for a long time. Shout out Ellie. I only started somewhat recently, but you guys are great at distributing important information palatably in the face of a strategically overwhelming campaign against basic human rights. You have been a go-to for a decent portion of my news for a few weeks now, and I hope you keep up the good work spreading the woke mind virus. Love, your favorite member of the real-life, non-parasocial polycule, Gabe H."
That's how it be sometimes. I'm trying to... when are y'all going to make us the progressive Joel Osteen?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Up there evangelizing in our Hito mega complex.
Yeah, I mean, we got lots of patrons, and I love you all deeply.
I do.
But we need to, like, quadruple that number.
We're increasing type.
Yeah, one day we're just going to triple Patreon prices out of nowhere.
Exactly.
No notification.
Not going to know. This next one, last one from Ash.
Yeah.
First of all, I condemn Hamas, any political violence, and Alyssa Slopkin. Heavy on that one. I started listening around 2 years ago when I found y'all on TikTok, and I was not very politically active, but left-leaning. Because of this podcast, I get excited each week to become educated on politics in a way that is not only funny and entertaining, but also makes me think more critically about the reasons for political decisions, and I have since found a love for talking about politics and being politically active in my community. I'm still a Wednesday weenie, but I plan on leaving my shackles behind and become a Sunday supremacist extremely really soon. Keep up what you're doing. I'd be lost without my parasocial Michigan white boys ongoing.
Yeah. Shout out to being politically active. You know, the news and a lot of commentators are like, where's the resistance? There's no resistance. I've been seeing plenty of resistance at these town halls, and it's mostly just old white people making death threats.
Yeah. Dude, no. Yeah. Yeah.
Like people calling Tom Tillis, and they're like, the last thing I'm going to do with my life is kill you.
It's crazy. Like...
It is insane, but the resistance is there, people.
I condemn political violence. But people are doing it. But like the only people I feel like I see consistently talking about the uproar at town halls are the Majority Report and like other progressive outlets.
Yeah.
I don't really see CNN talking about that when I go and do my weekly troll.
Yeah, I wonder why. Maybe it's just because they've gone more centrist over the past since Trump won. I
feel like it's harder to like, I don't know, write an article about that. And they maybe don't want to keep hitting on things the same way that you can get away with keep hitting on things when you do 15-minute YouTube videos. But like, who's doing a real work?
It's a big deal, though.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah, it's political momentum. Anyways, getting into the news here, we're going to start off with deportations because despite the court orders, they continue.
Yeah, no, that was wicked. I feel like that's another entry in the Hiddo episode immediately aging poorly.
Yeah.
Catalog, we had Tucker Carlson immediately getting fired the day after we said he wouldn't get fired. And then on last episode, when I'm talking about this act, when I'm, disseminating the news, I say, but luckily a judge stopped this and ordered the planes to turn around. Because that's what I read. That's the information I had. And then Sunday night, I went on and I'm looking on the news, and all of a sudden I see articles that are like, they didn't turn the planes around.
Well, and if you listen to Trump, it's because that judge is a woke activist appointed by Obama.
Well, of course.
And so that justifies his actions.
It does.
So anyways, last week we left you off with a story. Gage left you off with a story about the invocation of the Alien Enemies Act of 1789 and the potential, but I guess spoiler that you already got, the failure of courts to stop Trump's use of the act to deport immigrants without due process. And that is basically the whole of the follow-up here, because we covered that Trump last week started deporting Venezuelan immigrants to El Salvador without due process under the Alien Enemies Act, which he invoked not during wartime, I'll remind you. But I think it's pretty nicely summarized, the story, with a quote from the AP. They said, quote, "The Trump administration has transferred hundreds of Venezuelan immigrants to El Salvador under the 18th century law. Flights were in the air last Saturday when Boasberg, the judge, orally from the bench issued an order to temporarily bar the deportations and ordered planes to return to the U.S. Here's where the violation of the rule of law occurs. Quote, "The Justice Department has said that judges' oral directions did not count, that only his written order needed to be followed, and that it couldn't apply to flights that had already left the United States."
I think they tried to argue that, it's over international waters, so that doesn't matter. There's no laws here.
Mm-hmm.
The
Gitmo arguments.
The people at the Justice Department did the fucking thing that 15-year-olds believe.
Yeah. Well, it's the Guantanamo Bay argument. Like, this is a law-free zone. Like, it's not in the United States.
You can't make this shit up. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, especially because these are the guys that are like, our Bill of Rights was handed to us by God. Well, it's like, okay, then it only applies within the borders of the United States. If it's divine intervention, then why wouldn't it apply anywhere?
When it comes to like military planes and whatnot, aren't those considered U.S. soil?
Yeah.
Like when you're on the plane, you're considered like a part of the U.S. and subject to the U.S.'s laws.
That would make sense to me.
I think that makes the most sense. I think that's how it is, though.
Yeah. So the circumstance here is that Trump has basically disappeared hundreds of immigrants solely because they've been accused of being members of Tren de Aragua, using a law that's only been invoked 3 times in U.S. history, all during declared wars.
Like big wars, too.
Yeah, actual like World War II type wars. Not that the use of it during World War II was justified in any real way, but that's like the context of the law. And on top of that, the immigrants, who again have only been accused of being members of this Venezuelan gang, had no due process, right? They didn't see an immigration court. When you're deported, you go through immigration proceedings.
Yeah.
Say what you will about how immigrants are treated in that process or how lackluster that process actually is in protecting people's rights. Separate issue. But in this case, they didn't even get due process.
No, and
you're just gone.
Also, I'd like to point out that for a while, at least until about 4 days ago from when we record this on Sunday, they refused to release a list of the names of the people that they deported.
Yeah.
They were just not cooperating with like media's requests, judges' requests, anybody's request to just tell people who they deported. That's fucking insane. Now, I don't think the names of everyone are public, but they've released them to media. And I think I read a Reuters article where the Venezuelan PM or something said none of these guys are TDA. None of these guys are Tren de Aragua. Seemingly every single person that I like read about that's like been looked at through this list is just a guy that was here. I read a CNN article about how some barber from Venezuela who was here, like asylum seeker or whatever, got deported. No evidence whatsoever that he was Tren de Aragua?
Yeah, I think there was one that was an athlete who had a tattoo that they said was Tren de Aragua, but it was just like something sports related. Yeah, soccer team.
Yeah.
So just anyone with a tattoo. Also, like getting a tattoo doesn't mean you can be deported.
And I also saw that Tren de Aragua is like one of those gangs that doesn't require you to get tattoos.
Oh, well then
so it's like, what are we doing here now?
It's like when Trump said before the election, he's like, sometimes you can look at immigrants and know that they're bad.
Yep.
That was a thing he said like in October of last year.
Well, that's a thing that the Justice Department or ICE is saying at the very least. So like on top of just no due process, not having anybody's cases here, they're also just not even trying to hide the fact that there's no due process. And somehow they're using the fact that some of these people have no criminal records to prove that they're terrorists. I have a quote from an official filing by ICE field officer Robert Cerna where he said, quote, "While it is true that many of the Tren de Aragua members removed under the Alien Enemies Act do not have criminal records in the United States, that is because they have only been in the United States for a short period of time. The lack of a criminal record does not indicate they pose a limited threat. In fact, based upon their association with Tren de Aragua, the lack of specific information about each individual actually highlights the risk they pose. It demonstrates that they are terrorists with regard to whom we lack a complete profile." That's fucking disgusting. Crazy. Like, that's like...
That's justification to scoop up anybody and deport them.
No, literally.
Literally anyone.
He doesn't even hide the fact that the underlying assumption here is that they are Tren de Aragua.
Yes.
Like, just the baseline fact is that any of these people that we've deported are Tren de Aragua. There's no disputing that.
Guilty until proven innocent.
And even if you want to doubt that they're Tren de Aragua based on them not having a criminal record or only being here in the short period of time, we're actually allowed to minority report them because they're actually terrorists because they haven't done terror.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
what the fuck?
And they're just profiling them at this point. Like,
well, literally, a Latin person with a soccer tattoo is apparently a gang member now.
Yeah, but this is seemingly legal justification to just scoop up anybody they want, right? Like, you need to prove somebody committed a crime before you can do this to them, or before you can impose the law against them. There's no criminal record here, but they're saying that proves that there must be something wrong.
It's so incredibly bold and like just Hitlerite to get out there and say that like, no, actually just they look like gang members, and because they look like gang members actually and they haven't committed a crime, that means that they were actually just planning a really big crime that when we stopped them in the act. We're not going to give you any evidence to support that. You can't square the circle no matter how you try to do it. And frankly, justifications like this put forth in legal filings shouldn't be accepted in any fucking civilized nation.
Yeah.
This is bullshit. This is asinine.
Yeah, you can't punish somebody before they've committed a crime.
You can't minority report them.
Yeah, that's assuming that someone is going to commit a crime.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason to assume that.
Like, somebody, damn near, like, I don't know, you get a big scary guy in a room, you can't do anything until they actually do something. That's how civil society works. That's how the fucking rule of law works.
Yeah. When you violate the law, you are punished, not beforehand.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And especially like not punished, because we have to consider like the length and severity of this specific punishment too. These fuckers are being sent to CSOT, a prison known for committing human rights violations, a people where multiple people are held on life sentences without ever having a trial, not just from the U.S. because that's what we're doing here. It's ridiculous. It's like one of the world's most notorious, I guess, mega prisons.
Yeah, and the El Salvadorian president, I think, said they're going to be like changing the way the prison works so that instead of it costing taxpayers, they're just going to have like the prisoners basically be slaves and work for the prison.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah. They have like a zero idleness policy, which is just work will set you free, where the workers, when they're not, I guess, sleeping or eating, are just fucking workers. Prisoners, when they're just sleeping or eating, are working. Yeah, the slaves. Like, that's crazy. We sent them to a fucking concentration camp. What is different about this and a fucking concentration camp?
And like, we're 2 months in? We're 2 months in and we're getting concentration camps. Like, I know there's no reporters that have been to this prison. There probably won't be because, I don't know, they'd probably be killed if they tried to.
Yeah. No reporters after this started.
Yeah, we're not going to get like an inside scoop, or we can't see it because it's not on U.S. soil. But I mean, this shit is happening. If it continues to escalate, it might be happening here too.
Yeah.
Like, it is a mortifying power grab from the Trump administration. And even just beyond, even if like, let's say 90% of these people are Tren de Aragua, they've committed violent crimes before coming into the US, whatever, the people that aren't, it is literally just forced removal of people deemed undesirable.
Yes.
And that should freak you the fuck out.
And it's not because they were deemed undesirable because they've done something wrong.
Right.
Or they represent... they're deemed undesirable because they're brown. Mm-hmm. They're deemed undesirable because they're immigrants, and Trump thinks he has a mandate to get rid of any fucking brown person in the country.
Yeah.
Like, it's fucking crazy.
And look, a core component of fascism is the cleansing of the homeland for the sake of returning to like a glorious moment or when the country was glorious. It is purification. A campaign of purification is a core tenet of fascism.
And it's also like, this is all of this deportation, Tren de Aragua, Alien Enemies Act stuff is taking place under the, like, it's bullshit, but it's taking place under the pretext that this is to combat illegal immigration.
Yeah.
They are already taking steps to combat legal immigration, too. It just came out, I think, yesterday that Trump is taking steps to remove temporary protected status from 530,000 Cuban, Venezuelan, Haitian, and other migrants.
That's insane.
He's taking away their legal status.
They were approved to be here.
They are here legally.
They're here legally.
Temporary protected, like you're not an illegal immigrant. You are very much like recognized. You have work authorizations.
Yeah.
You are contributing to the economy. You're paying taxes. You're paying Social Security tax. You're paying your FICA taxes.
Yeah, like this came into contention in sort of public discourse when Trump did the whole "they're eating cats and dogs" thing on the debate stage. But as we talked about then, we can talk about it now. The Haitian immigrants that are most of them here on TPS under that program in Springfield, Ohio, revived the local economy because they come and work. It's a source of labor. And again, say what you will about that dynamic under capitalism, the way we treat immigrants and so on, but it's just not the case that they're here committing violent crimes.
No, absolutely not.
And kicking them out, I think, is an abuse of human rights, a violation of human rights, and it's just like bad for the country.
It's very bad for the country.
Yeah.
I think the UK and Germany issued travel advisories for the United States now. Last week. That's fucking crazy because shit at Border Patrol is even popping off now. I saw an article earlier this week. I think like some French professor was coming in here for a science conference. Border Patrol searched her phone, saw that she had a message where she criticized what Trump's done with the NIH, and then turned her around. Wouldn't let her in.
Genuinely fucking insane.
That's nuts, dude. ICE evil.
Yeah.
Like, ICE is crazy. And there's been other instances. Like, it's been popular this week that reports are coming out that, like, people are being searched at the border for, like, not your political affiliation, but like stuff like that continues to happen at the border, or ICE is just going at a level of scrutiny with visa holders that is unprecedented to try and just deport or detain anybody they can to, I guess, pump their fucking numbers and also commit their ideological project of being evil because it's ICE.
And it's not even just student visas, green card holders, right? Like
exactly. Anybody who's not necessarily a citizen, but when I was doing some research this morning, I had seen articles that just came out. One headline from USA Today: yes, Border Patrol can go through your phone. Here's what travelers should know. This is like you're preparing for your next Europe trip. Here's 5 places to visit.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the tone of this headline does not match the moment. Like...
Genuinely dystopian.
And then it goes through in detail that Border Patrol has every right to search your phone. I've seen some people get out there and say that for travel advice, if you're, I don't know, politically involved, like say we are, you should have a burner phone when you go to come back from border security, because they're hooking up people's phones to these different devices to just search them, and they don't know what the fuck they're doing with the devices. It's ridiculous, bruh.
Maybe I should not visit Canada anytime soon.
That's what I'm saying. Another article from Newsweek that I think also came out, published March 20th, Border Patrol checking U.S. visitors' phones, social media. Is it legal? Yes. Yes, it is legal for them to do that.
On what grounds can they turn people around for what they said?
Unreasonable search. U.S. citizens, I don't think they can.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't trust Border Patrol to, I don't know, maybe let me in or not keep that data and do something nefarious with it later.
Even not just citizens, like green card holders who are permanent residents. That's like one step down from citizenship. They are protected under the Constitution.
Yeah, but like Mahmoud Khalil was a green card holder.
But that's what I'm saying. What I mean?
Like that's where this is going.
There's no legal justification, and it's immoral and evil.
Yeah, and it's like in these articles that I was reading about, like, here's how to plan your re-entry into the country if you're politically active or anything. It's ridiculous, dude. It's crazy.
Man, there was a time in the world, especially in Europe, where like borders just weren't a problem.
Yeah.
Like you could just go places.
Yeah.
I know the U.S. has always been pretty bad to immigrants, Ellis Island and whatnot, all the bottlenecks we created, especially how we treated like Asian immigrants. But like It did not used to be like this in some places of the world, and now everyone's focused on borders, and it's so upsetting.
Now I'm reading that like Border Patrol reserves the right at the border to just deny Fourth Amendment privileges. Like the Fourth Amendment somehow doesn't apply to like Customs and Border Patrol when they want to search you upon reentry.
Awesome.
And a lot of these justifications they're using are just national security. You can just go out there and say national security for everything. That's what Trump is doing. That's what the administration is doing to violate your rights.
Man, and also can't understate the role the Democrats played in getting us to this point.
Yep.
Because they did not fight back enough against the narrative.
Yeah, all this stems from Democrats not being spineless about legal paths to entry, and immediately just hopping on the "we need to get brown people out of the country" train.
And like the national security argument is that like there's gangs coming across, they're dealing fentanyl or whatever, and they commit a bunch of crime.
Yeah,
none of that is true.
Yep.
Like it's not true that gangs or
to the extent that the Republicans say that they're coming over and doing these things, they aren't.
But even with fentanyl, it's like American citizens taking over the border for American citizens. Yeah. Illegal immigrants commit disproportionately less crime than citizens or people that are immigrants that are here legally. It's just not true.
They've committed a crime when they came over. If you can't expect them to respect this country's laws on entry, how can you expect them to respect our laws when they're here?
Of course. Yeah,
that's my Alyssa Slotkin impression.
Unfortunately, the story doesn't end here, though, because Trump, Musk, and a couple other Republicans, actually a lot of other Republicans, have called for the impeachment of Judge Boasberg. That's the one who said, actually, you can't do that, and then they did it anyway. They've claimed that he is a radical left Obama appointment, but there's a couple notable things here. First of all, he was initially appointed by George W. Bush, and then he was elevated to the position he currently holds by Barack Obama after he was confirmed unanimously by the Senate,
Classic.
Of which there were Republicans, of course, some of which are still there, I would think. Two, he's not radical left, which shouldn't really be a surprise. Boasberg was actually the guy that refused to force the IRS to disclose Trump's tax returns when that was a controversy, and he's the same guy that forced Hillary Clinton to release her emails.
You know, I think
small world.
I think that fact right there should be a lesson to all of the corporations that we're going to talk about later that are just bending the knee to Trump. You can do whatever it is you want to appease this guy now, but the second you do something that he doesn't like, he will pull out. He will not stop in his crusade to ruin you.
Yeah.
Like, it's not worth it. It's wholly not worth it.
Also, he's not like a nobody. He's the chief judge of the D.C. District Court.
That's an important one.
That's a very important one. He's pretty high up in the judicial branch. He's not a nobody. And lastly, is the point we've been making for months now, the Republic was structured for the judicial branch to check the presidency.
Yeah.
Like, the judicial branch can declare what a president is doing unconstitutional if there's a legal challenge, and then they can put a hold on it. That is like distinctly one of the functions of the judiciary as it was originally intended.
Yeah. Even without judicial review.
Even without judicial review.
No Marbury versus Madison.
Came immediately after, of course. But like the point was to put stays on presidential orders and to like review the Constitution, see if things are constitutional.
Yeah.
It's like the explicit purpose. The purpose of the presidency is not to just do literally whatever he wants.
And it's also like, I feel like it can't be understated that what Boasberg did was not tell Trump he cannot deport these people. Mm-hmm. He just said, whoa, hold on a minute. Things are moving a little too fast now.
Yeah.
You can't just immediately send them over. Like, we need to go through and make sure everything is like working like legally.
Yeah, and he couldn't get a written like order out that quickly because the planes were in the sky.
Yeah.
Like, he just needed to verbally order them to stop. And of course, verbal orders from a judge are allowed. Like that's a thing.
Yeah.
So,
and it's just like he wasn't even saying you can't deport these people. He's just saying, wait.
Yeah. More importantly, I don't think that Trump will be successful in impeaching Judge Boasberg, the guy who dared to say, like, hold on a second with these deportations. Yeah. But I do think that the Trump administration is slowly manufacturing consent for more brazen executive actions that ignore judicial injunctions. We haven't quite got there yet. I think this is the first time he's just openly saying that what a judge did was wrong.
I think so too.
Because he doesn't, he hasn't fallen in line with the national agenda to restore the glory of the country.
It's like,
but it's getting close.
Isn't there kind of like an interesting interplay here? Like, if we consider like Trump ignoring these orders to be illegal, is it actually illegal considering the Supreme Court ruling last year?
Isn't
that like, can do anything, is that not an official act?
Well, I think it's unconstitutional from the perspective of the president, the office of the president's ignoring an order.
Oh,
but
that's true.
Trump can't be personally prosecuted for the things that he does as president. I think that's probably how it applies, but who knows? Maybe we get a changing of that precedent this year, you know?
Maybe the president could just write a new one every year.
But also, there's no real mechanism for if the president just starts ignoring court orders. Like,
that's true. Yeah, judicial branch notorious for not having a
enforcement
mechanism.
And if the branches don't themselves follow checks and balances, then there's nothing that the other can really do.
Yeah, like we talked about when we talked about how we justify our opinions in the Biden administration and like what Trump's doing and how we're big rule of law heads now. There's got to be a base level of buy-in for any of these systems to work. The government is fundamentally fake.
That applies to every system ever.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Like everything we do is kind of fake and made up, and everybody's got to buy into the social contract and, you know, at least have some rules.
Yeah.
There doesn't need to be a rules-based order, and I'm kind of a fan of that.
Yeah, and sort of to that point, circling around the Trump administration is this like litany of legal scholars and commentators and former officials who are working to build the legal justifications for what Trump is doing. You read one off earlier, like someone in the Trump administration that's offering these nonsensical legal justifications. But I feel like the historical analog is important to point out here, because an essential component of the Nazi takeover of Germany was these wacky interpretations of the law, but just repeated over and over until people started buying into them. Like, there was a thing known as Nazi jurisprudence before, you know, everything went bad and we decided that that was a bad thing to do.
Yeah.
But what the Nazis were doing was in many ways blatantly illegal, unconstitutional from their point of view, but they took a lot of time to hide these new actions behind new interpretations of the law, because they managed to capture many parts of their judicial system and academics, which is a thing conservatives are actively working to do, which we can talk about in a little bit when we talk about the Department of Education.
Yeah.
Like, if you look back at the arguments that Nazis made, like the legal scholars, the legal leaders for the Nazi movement, you will see that they are nonsense, but they were important components of convincing the public and others to join the program.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening here. You got dudes like J.D. Vance, you got people in the judicial branch, you've got commentators that go on Fox News and all push the same sort of arguments that if you don't fall in line with the presidency, then you're doing something wrong. You can get smited by the president. I mean, same thing with like unitary executive theory.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's all power is vested in the president, and if you don't fall in line, then you're not you're the one that's actually violating the Constitution.
Yeah, like Trump and the people around him genuinely think he has like a mandate to do whatever he wants, and are using that idea to say that, hey, he can do whatever he wants and no other branch can check him.
Yeah.
And, you know, the legislature's just not going to fucking do anything because all those people fell in line because they're too scared of an Elon primary challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's sort of where we're at with deportations. We got the Republicans ignoring court orders for agenda of restoring the nation to its former glory through racial purification.
Yes.
Very fash.
Very fash. Yeah. Although I will say we had a break, I think, from them cutting Social Security and Medicaid.
Oh, like a 1 week break?
Yeah.
I mean, they're still closing like field offices and stuff.
Yeah, they're still doing it. It's still gonna happen. But we had a break from kind of news about it.
Either Musk did this, or Trump was like, there was like an executive order or something that made it so you can't confirm your identity over the phone anymore for the purposes of Social Security. So you either have to go to an office, which is, they're closing them, or you have to do it online, and old people are bad at using computers. So you tell me what the intended effect is there.
Right? Nice. It's so fucking stupid.
Just evil.
Dude, and it's like crazy how like dumb this fascism is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just doing these just like stupid and what you would think are just banal things that actually have serious impacts on people's ability to like draw on benefits they've paid into their whole life.
Yeah.
Like, it's so crazy how fucking stupid it is that you can say you can no longer confirm who you are over the phone, and that's genuinely going to cut people off from their benefits.
Yeah, that might be the one saving grace here, is that these guys are actually pretty fucking dumb.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have the sauce to do full fascism. I hope not. But because the Democrats are useless, this might be the only way that we can save ourselves.
They say fascism burns out like quickly, like it burns itself out.
Yeah.
They've been going pretty quickly these past 2 months. Again, it's only been 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
There are months where nothing happens, and there are months where all the months happen. Mm-hmm. I feel like we're in the months where all the months happen, so I'm really hoping they burn out soon.
Yeah, things have certainly been happening. The congregation is missing someone. And that someone, dear listener, is you. The congregation awaits you over on our Discord. If you go into the description of this episode right now, there will be a link to join the Head in the Office Discord, where you will find more than 1,000 like-minded individuals for you to interact with. And maybe most importantly, we'll be there.
1,000 members strong. It is a burgeoning community of Hitto-heads.
That's right.
Ready to receive you into their arms. Make you a part of the community. Vest you as a Hitto-head.
Over on Discord, we have discussions. You can interact with other Hitto-heads. And maybe, for some fun, we can do some community events. And we know that you want to be a part of that. Only available over on the official Head in the Office Discord. I think it's time to move on to the Department of Education.
Yes.
Because it's been a part of the conservative project ever since this department was made in the 70s that we got to take this out.
Who would have thought that talking about an obscure legal theory that is really only consumed as an elective in law school classes back like 4 years ago would set us on the path we are today?
Yeah. Conservatives have been gunning for this for a while, though. Like Reagan tried to get rid of it, too. Didn't work back then.
Didn't they start in the 70s?
Yeah, 79. They've been trying to get rid of it ever since it was...
I was kidding. Didn't Reagan come in like the 80s?
Yeah.
Like early...
Yeah. They've been trying to get rid of it forever. And I think you'll be able to tell why by the end of this. But Trump just issued an executive order dismantling the Department of Education, at least as much as can be done without Congress.
I would say notably something he can't do.
Yeah.
But
I think he's trying to scale down as much as possible, as much as he can without an order from Congress or legislation from Congress. He's already been firing hundreds of Department of Education employees. He's been cutting contracts. So this is more like formalizing it than anything else and drawing back procedures and sort of, I don't know, just shit that they do generally. But conservatives, as I said, have been coming after the Department of Education since its creation because it's, big government overreach. It spreads leftist propaganda or whatever. But I think it's important to note, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, but the Department of Education is not responsible for national curriculum.
No.
It's not what they do. We do not have a centralized education system.
Yeah, reading scores being bad in like some places, like the U.S. being behind is not because the Department of Education is enforcing the wrong curriculum on schools. Yeah. It's not because the Department of Education is issuing like the wrong recommendations. Yeah,
the Department of Education doesn't handle national curriculum. What the Department of Education does for the most part is Title I funding for poor schools and poor students. They handle discrimination cases like civil rights violations, and they do student loans.
Yeah, notably, Trump closed, I think, over half of the civil rights offices across the country.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and as we'll get into, I think that is the intended purpose here.
Yeah.
Because, again, education is a state-by-state thing. States, for the most part, handle and fund their own education services. I think the Department of Education only provides like 14% of national education funding. Like, it's a pretty small amount. Not insignificant, of course. It's important, especially for those that need it.
And a lot of that money goes to the people that need it. It goes to Title I schools, special ed departments.
But for the most part, like, closing the Department of Education does nothing to change the curriculum that they think is like gone woke or indoctrinated students.
Yeah.
It takes funding away from students in schools that need it, and it just makes it easier to discriminate.
Yeah.
Which I think is the intent here.
And it's not even going to save that much money.
It really won't. Yeah. It really won't. But on student loans specifically, I thought this was another sign of the times. Quote, on Friday, Trump said the Small Business Administration would take over the $1.6 trillion of federal student loan, the $1.6 trillion federal student loan portfolio. Conservatives, including former Trump Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, have talked about setting up a quasi-private bank to administer the loans.
Come on. Come on. The whole point of federal student loans is that it's lower interest rates and sometimes deferred interest, whether or not you have a Stafford or non-Stafford loan. A quasi-private bank, brother, like, you just want to get me for all I got.
You want to get you for all you got. It's worth noting, of course, that the total student loan portfolio, 1.6 trillion or whatever it is bigger than the entire portfolios of every U.S. bank except 3. So setting up any bank to manage this would be kind of insane.
Yeah.
Because that is a massive amount of money. Also, it's like, it just reminds me of when conservatives talk about putting Social Security into like the S&P 500.
Yes.
It is just putting your money in the hands of somebody that can scam you and fuck you over so they can profit off of you.
And I was going to say, like,
suffer.
Even putting Social Security in the S&P 500 sounds smarter than doing this.
Yeah.
Like, I can understand why at first glance you think like, oh, the market would fucking 7 to 10% every year, blah, 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 that money would grow quicker. But it's a bad idea. We could talk about it maybe on another episode, but at least that sounds good. This just sounds like they want to fuck me.
You want to set up a bank to manage your student loans.
It just sounds like they want to bend me over, dude. Like, what's the point of this? Like, it's the lower interest rates. That's why you get government loans. That's why you want government loans.
Yeah, the private loans suck.
I do not want Sally Mae hopping in a private-public partnership to help educate the next generation of leaders.
I had to take out one Sally Mae loan for 1 year.
What was it, 13%?
Of my college education. It was 12.5%.
12.5%. That's ridiculous.
And interest started applying immediately.
Yep.
You know, like it wasn't deferred or anything like that. The interest was insane. I'm glad I got it paid off pretty quickly because of various changes in my financial situation. But I'm very glad to only be in debt to the federal government. Of course, with the Department of Education closing, if it fully closes, you're still going to owe that money.
Yeah.
It's just now a quasi-private bank might own it. And that's worse. That's so much worse.
Like,
Also, the FAFSA form or like the studentaid.gov website was down recently because of all like the staffing firings and stuff. Yeah, it just wasn't functioning for a few hours.
Lovely. Shows how these critical redundancies are actually indeed critical.
Yeah.
That's why it's in the name. You know, you need a bunch of people that do the same job, so that when one person can't, another person can step in. I thought these people were good at businesses.
Yeah, if you're a college student still or looking to be a college student, I hope you filled out FAFSA when it was the Biden administration.
Yeah.
And not now.
And you're graduating this year.
Yeah, I hope you're about to be done and not thinking about staying in academics because holy moly, man.
Notice how there's no talk about like, I don't know, trade school subsidies like Republicans love to signal about. They don't give a shit about you either.
Nothing like that. Maybe they'll start talking about school vouchers. They might start talking about that.
But that's, oh my God, Jesus.
But that, of course,
Christ,
isn't
man.
a solution. And maybe we can get into that when they do that too. Besides loan, though, so much of education is managed on the state level, as we said. And so dismantling the Department of Education, in my opinion, is just to hurt black kids. Like,
oh yeah,
that's like the point, full stop. Because it makes it so the federal government isn't actively investigating discrimination cases at schools.
Yeah. It's to hurt minorities, people who like would be discriminated against, and it's to hurt poor people because Title I funding. Like, this is ridiculous. And it's like, I also think an absurd part of all this is that in these statements or in these executive orders or these press conferences after, the administration keeps saying that all of the important functions will just be absorbed by another department.
Yeah.
Why get rid of the department then?
Yeah.
Why get rid of the apartment unless it's like a virtue signal or you don't actually care about these important functions, which I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, to me, that's just saying like you're still going to owe the loans, but we're not doing anything else.
Exactly. The important functions are collecting the money that you owe me.
Yeah.
Like, dude, it's so stupid.
Yeah, one other component of this is that Trump keeps praising the education systems of Norway and China, saying they're like out competing us. But what's notable here is that those are countries with incredibly centralized education systems. Not decentralized to, their different provinces or whatever, like the way that we have with all the states.
And I would imagine robust investments in education.
Yeah. Centralized standards and curriculum. Like, that's what you need to compete with these other schools. It's the fact that we have 50 different systems, basically, that makes it so students fall behind in one place compared to another place. But he's not interested in doing that.
Yeah.
And maybe it's good that he can't do that because it'd be bad for him to do it.
Yeah.
I think that's crazy.
Yeah. And why are there different curriculums that like not even different curriculums, but like different standards? I don't know. It's all fucking stupid.
Yeah, I guess I don't know about like the history of the development of our education system, but I would guess it's probably to keep like segregation going.
Maybe we need to have someone from the evil teachers union on.
Yeah, the teachers union soaking up all the money.
They are.
All the debates around the teachers unions are like is so funny because conservatives will always say that they're the reason that students are like doing poorly.
Yeah.
They're soaking up all the money in the school budgets or whatever. But it's like teacher working conditions literally are the conditions that students learn in. If you pay the teachers better, if you give them more equipment and resources and whatnot, they could teach the kids better.
And it's like, even when it comes to like union dues, you give those teachers back like whatever $100 a month that they're paying to their union dues, even if it's that high, they're still not making a living.
Yeah, teachers do not make that much money.
No, they don't. I've seen like new teachers come fresh out of school making like $16 an hour.
Oh my God,
brother!
man.
I could go to Qdoba and make more money than that.
That's
I mean, frankly,
crazy.
that's what I make with my biochemistry degree, $17 an hour. But like, that ain't shit.
And people are like, well, you can't ever fire a teacher. It's like, well, it's just basic union protections.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there should be like a process for firing people, especially if they're in an important position, especially if they're a member of a union. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
To protect someone's
That's the whole
employment.
point. Yeah.
So that's not good, but Department of Education on the chopping block had it too good for too long.
Way too good.
Yeah.
Way too good. These radical teachers unions, they've been eating steak off the backs of the poorest in our country.
Anyways, moving on to the Democrats.
I love the Democrats.
We've been talking about the Republicans, talking about Trump, talking about the destruction of the country and our standing in the world, and that's a lot of fun, but I think it's time to do some infighting.
I think so.
We're members of the culture war, but we got to remember that there's two sides of it.
Yeah.
And sometimes we got to throw punches at people that are on our side too.
I gotta make good on what they all say in that, like, the progressive wing of the party is actually ruining it for them.
Yeah.
I do want to ruin it for them.
I'm trying to ruin it for them actively.
Yes.
That is absolutely my goal. So we're going to do some infighting here. We got to talk about the resistance, the opposition. What should be the opposition? Because since Election Day, more importantly, since January 20th, there's been a growing schism within the Democratic Party. The more populist, like Bernie, AOC type people on that side of the faction have been taking it to constituents, even going to red districts. Like Tim Walz has been doing events in districts where the Republican doesn't hold events anymore because they're scared.
Yeah.
That's cool. Shout out.
That is cool.
I think Bernie just held a rally that was bigger than all of his presidential rallies.
Yeah, it's like
which is crazy.
25,000
in Colorado, I think.
Something like that. Yeah.
That's a ridiculous amount of people.
No, that's a lot. He's got overflow crowds on overflow crowds. I think he had also pulled more people at that venue than Trump did during his presidential campaign.
Yeah.
I think that was like a stat that I read.
So shout out. That's cool. We love to see that. But the other side of the faction, the sort of neoliberal, centrist, moderate types.
The adults in the room.
The adults in the room, the ones that were supposed to, I don't know, win the election for us, have been sort of without an answer until now.
You know, the ones who were going to win the election based on their moderate stance on abortion were just in their retreats trying to figure out, what do we do?
Yeah, the people who were like, we should be talking about assistance with down payments and not like, I don't know, public housing. Not like, I don't know, the decommodification of housing as a whole. That's these people.
Yes, yeah.
So we're going to be talking about what's been called the abundance agenda. And I don't want to spend too much time on this or inflate its importance because it could end up being nothing. But because a lot of this scheme comes from a book written by Ezra Klein, a sort of notorious liberal centrist type.
And it's like
that he calls himself a progressive, but like I think you'll get that he's not really.
I didn't read into this when it was like popping on Twitter and like people were talking about it a couple days ago, but I just saw abundance agenda and low-key I assumed it was like they were making fun of what progressives want. And that's what I thought this whole thing was. And then I go through what you wrote and I was like, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah. So we can get into it. I think it's indicative of where the party might go. Again, it maybe it's just nonsense that's forgotten in a month, maybe has no influence on the direction of the Democratic Party. But I think as principled leftists, it's worth engaging with the material here and considering where maybe this goes wrong, because this could be what the party becomes. Or I should say, maybe as a spoiler, it could just be what the party stays as, because it really isn't anything new.
I was going to say, it's either the Democratic Tea Party wins out with whatever momentum that we have going on now, or these fucking guys.
Yeah. So the general outline of the abundance agenda is as follows, and I want to try to steelman this. I'm pulling from a Vox article that I was reading that's pretty supportive. The sort of theory or project itself is an entire book, which of course didn't read the entire book. So there might be like minutia and nuances in that book that might lend to their argument a little bit more.
Is it the Ezra Klein book?
Yeah.
Okay.
He wrote it with somebody else too. But like I think we can get the broad strokes here and still argue from those positions. I don't think reading the entire, like I'm not doing a takedown of the entire book is what I'm trying to say. But the general outline is that status quo liberalism for the past few decades has failed to deliver what they call material plenty. And they think that liberalism is too focused on processes rather than results. They want a sort of results-driven version of liberalism.
Okay.
So to combat, not so bad starting off.
Yeah.
And this isn't, this sort of agenda isn't all nothing. There's some things to like, and I think we can talk about that too. But to combat this, the left, they think, needs to adopt an agenda focused on abundance through a couple of strategies. First, deregulation.
Okay.
Which alarm bells in your head if you're on the left. But more specifically, they mean like YIMBYism. So yes in my backyard as opposed to being a NIMBY.
Which is zoning shit, right?
Yeah. And then they talk about slashing some environmental regulations for infrastructure projects, specifically those burdensome ones that require you to write like hundreds of pages of how you're going to protect the environment when you do something. These things they think are sort of wasteful, but for reasons we can get into later, it's not the left's fault that that's happening.
Yeah.
And then expanding energy creation, which they include oil and gas in this sort of scheme as well. And then... and this is the biggest red flag to me, government investment in technology, specifically artificial intelligence.
That's where you lose me.
Yeah.
You know what? It's like it just got worse.
Yeah.
Like each new bullet point was just worse than the last. Like, yes, I'm for YIMBYism. I don't fuck with NIMBYs. Me and all my homies hate NIMBYs. Slashing environmental regulations. I understand that some regulations are burdensome. Mm-hmm. Some regulations ought to be removed and whatnot. So, okay, maybe I could get behind this. What's that next one? Expanding energy creation, including oil and gas. We don't need to be doing this.
Yeah.
Very short-term solution when there are long-term negative consequences that I feel like we and them, the centrist party, the centrist liberals have doted on about forever that it feels like we're abandoning now. And then government investment in AI.
Yeah. Which makes me feel like it was like oil and gas executives and then the sort of AI investors that funded this book's creation. You know what I mean? That's what it makes me feel like.
They gave him the advance.
But like, so in terms of deregulation, it's sort of similar to the housing market. They call for deregulation of certain like things in education and the healthcare industry as well. Like they want to deregulate medical residencies to allow more people to be doctors to like ease the strain on the market.
What does that mean though? Like
the idea is that there's too few doctors, which causes healthcare prices to increase, and that might be true to some extent.
No,
but
you don't even have to be like involved in the medical field to understand that like the biggest problem with medical prices is the unnecessary middlemen. It's the insurance companies that are driving up prices.
It's
that's what it is. Yes, doctors are paid a lot of money, but the portion of what you pay or your insurance pays when you have a hospital visit to pay the doctor is nothing. It's fucking pennies compared to what these for-profit hospitals make and what the insurance companies make when they make these deals with the hospitals. That's ridiculous. There is a doctor shortage, and I would be interested in kind of like seeing if he talks about this in the book, but the issue with like residencies and there being too few doctors is there's a lack of funding approved by Congress to go to residency programs.
Yeah.
So they won't bring on more residents. I just get anxious when I hear deregulation when it comes to residencies because a notable regulation placed on residency programs is that residents aren't allowed to work more than 80 hours a week averaged over a month, which has been a problem because residents have been working more than 80 hours a week.
Yeah. I don't think
it's evil because it's not a Republican proposal, but
I don't think the authors would be like principally opposed to raising the funding levels.
Yeah,
like they're not anti-government or anti-government spending. They make it pretty clear that they want the government to spend on some projects in here, but their general like the general schematic or model for the agenda is deregulation of some sort of burdensome or overly cautious bits of red tape. And then government investment in things like technology, which they label as like innovation.
Yeah, but it's just like it worries me, this like market focus.
Well, yeah, and that's what this is going to be. A lot of this is a market focus.
I feel like the market has very much proven that it cannot regulate itself in these instances, especially when it comes to healthcare.
Yeah.
Like the healthcare market is kind of an absurd concept.
Yeah, and the sort of endpoint I'll put on this more thoroughly a little bit later is that this fundamentally isn't a book about politics.
Oh.
If politics is like my personal opinion is that the definition of politics, or maybe not a definition, but politics fundamentally refers to power structures.
Yeah.
And if you look out into the world and you have no critique of existing power structures, who the oppressor is and who's doing the oppression through those power structures, then you don't have a political program that's even worth talking about.
Yeah.
At least on the right, when we talk to someone that is like very pro-capitalism, they're clear about what political structures they like. But when we talk about politics in this way, it sort of hides the ball or obscures what we're really talking about through these sort of minute policy changes that won't accomplish what they're trying to get at.
I was going to say, this is more so like a policy / maybe messaging guideline than it is actually something about like politics or work of political theory. When conservatives appoint enemy, how do they appoint enemy? It's trans women in sports and people who want to cross the border.
Yeah, and I should say that this book by the authors is being sold as a paradigm shift. That is the goal.
This is a paradigm shift?
They said the point of this book, because they were asked about it. I watched some interviews with the authors. Breaking Points did a pretty good job on this. They asked, like, what's the point of the book? Is this a messaging guideline? Is this just like some policies you think would be helpful? Or is this like a political program? And one of the authors said that the point of this book is to issue in a new paradigm. Like it's a paradigm shift is what they're going for.
This is my Adam Smith Wealth of Nations, or this is my Wealth of Nations.
This is my Communist Manifesto.
This is my Keynesian economics.
Right.
Like, what the fuck is going on here? A paradigm shift?
That's what they want out of this. That's the goal.
Well,
and so before we get into our criticisms here, there are some things to like. Zoning laws are an issue.
Yes.
The zoning laws in this country are absolutely fucked. There is an absurd amount of federal red tape for some infrastructure projects. And there's some good things, like they do call for high-speed nationwide railing, a nationwide rail system, which is like, a noble project, something that I agree with. And blue states do often fail to deliver on promises like clean energy programs, high-speed rail, see California, see Las Vegas, and so on.
Yeah, of course.
Like there are local failures or statewide failures of democratic governance, and that is definitely something to be critical of. But there's a few issues with this program or quote-unquote paradigm shift. First of all, YIMBYism is good. I would consider myself to be a part of that camp.
Yes.
But the problem isn't just like suburban or even like quasi-urban development requirements. It's the fact that housing's a commodity. Likewise with healthcare, likewise with education, right? The fact that these things are commoditized means that a substantial chunk of your budget will always go towards them, and it will coerce you into jobs that you don't like in order to afford the essential resources of life.
I would also even take a step back and ask, was there any criticism, was it just focused on deregulation in the housing market, or was there any criticism focused on large investment groups like BlackRock buying up all the single family homes in a neighborhood? Was there like that extends from housing being a commodity, but it is such a particularly perverted version of the commodification of housing when private equity is buying everything up and making it so you can only rent and never own anything.
Yeah, you'll find throughout that there's no real criticism of the concentration of wealth at the
Seems
top.
like there's no real criticism of anything.
But they did say that where the housing market fails, public housing should be made available through like government-funded programs.
Fails everywhere.
Yeah, but they're saying like where people can't afford rents, then there should be like publicly funded and subsidized.
Interesting.
Rent. Yeah. So it's not complete. Again, they're not libertarians. They're not saying no government spending.
Yeah.
But there isn't any, and that's why I said this isn't like a book about politics, because there's no criticism or even recognition of existing power structures and how they influence us.
How can you claim for this to be a paradigm shift when you refuse to make any bold claims?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you got to say something crazy at least. Like.
Yeah, and also a article I was reading from Washington Monthly made the point that it's not just that suburban development requirements make it so like every house that you make in this like massive area has to be a family unit.
Yeah,
it's that commercial zones make it impossible to build apartments that regular people can afford, because when zones are made for commercial use, you can't build apartments there.
Yeah,
but they found that I think in Minneapolis, when they started easing up those requirements and allowed 30-story apartments to be made in commercial zones, a lot of people moved in because it's close to transportation and it's close to work and it's close to things that you need to buy.
Shit, I'd live in a commercial zone.
Yeah.
That sounds hella convenient.
I don't think that's something the authors would necessarily oppose.
Yeah.
But again, it's a policy solution, not a political program. So I don't think, again, if you want a paradigm shift, that's not necessarily what's being done here. And also the issue,
do they not dive into like policy examples or like policy solutions like that when they're talking about this?
No, I think a lot of their stuff on housing is like policy solutions.
Okay, all right.
Well, it's more of a policy book than it is a politics book, at least from what I can tell. Also, the issue with housing, of course, is that all of your wealth is tied into it. The only way for a regular person to get wealth is to buy a home, which is the source of NIMBYism, right? Like you don't want your property values to go down. And if your entire wealth is tied up in your home and everything that you need to survive is commoditized, then of course you're not going to want your property value to go down.
I was going to say, it's like, while I don't rock with NIMBYs, like I get it. All of the incentives point to you wanting to be a NIMBY. All of the incentives point to you wanting to do everything possible to keep your home prices up in case something bad happens. You need to take out a line of credit on your house, or you need to sell your house and go somewhere else. Like that's kind of just how the incentive structures work in this country.
Yeah, you're incentivized into NIMBYism. You have to sort of think your way out of it to be a YIMBY.
Yeah.
The incentives are fucked. But beyond the policy, we should get to the more like fundamental question of the abundance agenda. And the first point here is that America isn't really lacking abundance. We have a lot of stuff, but the stuff is concentrated and held by those at the top. And the reason liberalism often fails isn't because of the progressive left, which this book focuses on criticizing quite a bit. It's because of the influence of the wealth and the people that hold it.
I just like the abundance agenda is just throwing me off too, because it feels like something that liberals would be throwing at, like, I don't know, Bernie Sanders. You know what I mean? It feels like a line of attack.
Yeah, and I think we'll get to like what this book is actually meant to be, but I think the point of this program, and I think it's more than a book, I think it's going to be like the sort of attempted revitalization of the moderate liberal strand or faction.
Yeah.
But I think that this is intended to ice the left out of popular politics right now.
But it's like, from what I've heard, at least so far, it sounds fundamentally incapable of doing so.
Right.
Like, the reason why AOC and Bernie have so much momentum right now is because they're willing to call it like it is, and people are recognizing that. Like, and actually call it like it is in a real way, calling it like it is, not like how Trump does it, where he's lying.
Yeah.
As much as they talk about wanting to be results oriented instead of process oriented, like, I don't think they have the sauce to even begin to do that.
Yeah, and what does that mean? That just feels like corporate speak.
100%. Yeah. This is slideshow speak. This is consultant speak.
And again, this book wouldn't be problematic at all if it was just like, here are some policy recommendations for, liberals moving forward.
Yeah.
Or if this book was intended to be pressure from, I don't know, intellectuals on the moderate wing, like, you're falling behind. The moderates need to get in line and start pushing for these things that have a proven track record to work. But the intent of this book is to push back on progressives. And they make it pretty clear throughout. In fact, I have a quote from the Washington Monthly.
Okay.
It says, quote, While devoting so much attention to progressive contradictions, abundance liberals are almost completely silent on the alliance between corporate behemoths and anti-government politicians that is the biggest threat to the world of plenty they envision, not to mention the republic. And the point here is that the force that has undermined things like high-speed rail or cheap healthcare or affordable housing projects has not been the progressive left. It's been politicians aligned with business interests.
Did they not talk about lobbying?
No, not even a little.
Is there not like a mention of Citizens United?
No, not that I know of, at least.
How can you write a book talking about a political paradigm shift in the country and I don't know, at least not criticize Citizens United?
Mm-hmm.
How do you talk about being results oriented? Because I'm assuming they allude to, maybe they don't even talk about democracy, man, but it's just like, it's fucked up.
And just on a broader point, this is functionally indistinguishable from like opportunity economy shit.
Yeah.
Like from the Harris campaign. It's just these like meaningless terms repackaged to sell the neoliberal project through like insufficient minor reforms that don't threaten capital in any real way. That's fundamentally what this project is.
If you're not talking about money and politics, you don't have a serious political theory. Like if you're talking about American politics, you don't talk about how money's infested our politicians. Corporations get to buy whatever they want. The richest man in the world gets to buy the co-presidency. Mm-hmm. Although this was probably written before that, I can't take you seriously.
Well, part of it was written before, part of it was written after. But yeah, a lot of it was written in like the lead up to the 2024 election.
Oh,
but like, the one of the core criticisms I think of this should be just that like this has been the promise of neoliberalism since the jump. Uh-huh. They said through deregulation, through austerity, and through offshoring jobs, we're going to get a bunch of cheap goods. And to be fair, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
But we hollowed out the country. Now people are making less, and because we deregulated, wealth has been sent up to the top, and now all of us are poorer because of that.
Yeah.
And without any real acknowledgement of the systems that made that happen or the history of the U.S. or the political power and where it's concentrated now, you don't really have any kind of program, much less a paradigm shift. And that's what frustrates me about all this, is that there are people that will champion this agenda, maybe because of this book, maybe just because they agree with it, who knows. But there's no critique of anything real here, except there's a critique of the progressive left.
Yeah, I bet there's hardly any critiques of conservatives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like
liberals love, just on a fucking tangent side note, liberals love, the centrist guys that we're talking about here, love to go out and say like, oh, progressives spend all their time criticizing us. Why don't they criticize Republicans? When these same people spend all their time criticizing progressive Democrats rather than criticizing Republicans.
To be fair, they're pretty honest about the fact that this is a critique of like why democratic governance is struggling on the state level. Like they are questioning the fact that a Republican can say they're going to make the U.S. look like California, and the implication is that that's a bad thing. Right?
Yeah.
They're looking out at like Gavin Newsom and at other Democratic governors and thinking like, why are we failing? But their policy solutions don't necessarily get us to a point where we're succeeding. They're not all bad, but they're not necessarily like going to solve the problem. And they don't interrogate like what the influences are at all. Like the reason Gavin Newsom has failed on like clean energy or high-speed rail or whatever it may be isn't because of the progressive left.
Yeah.
It's because of capital. And also he's the fucking shiftless demon.
Yeah, he allowed himself to get scammed by contractors who couldn't fulfill on the promises they made. And then didn't he ultimately just like kind of give up the project for Elon Musk to do something?
That was Las Vegas.
That was what that. Oh, okay, yeah. That's what the Hyperloop was.
Yeah, but that's also to the point. Like whether it's climate action or transportation projects or whatever it may be, wealth is always there to push the agenda in such a way that benefits them materially.
There's no critique of these private-public partnerships that absolutely gut state budgets.
Yeah.
Like,
and to me, the best version of this is just that like you'll be able to purchase a lot of stuff, but again,
own nothing.
But I don't know if it's even own nothing. It's just
true, because they want the houses.
You'll be able to like buy a lot of stuff. You'll have money to buy a lot of stuff, but it's like that again. There's no critique of like the power imbalances at all, and that's what makes this project more sinister than one might think at the jump. Not that it's like insufficient in resolving our issues, but that it's like purposefully insufficient and designed to be insufficient.
Like, Democrats barely even pretend to do anything for people. Like the Democrats like Gavin Newsom, the Democrats in these like deep blue places. The problem that people have with them, the reason why people don't want their state to be like California, is because they perceive the leaders in those states as doing nothing for the people in those states.
Yeah.
And it's kind of true. Like, it's at least half true.
Yeah. There's a few more things to mention on this before we can move on. One, in the interview I was watching with one of the authors, Crystal Ball from Breaking Points asked, okay, then who's the enemy? Like, who's the villain against this political project. She's like, is it the progressive left? Is it Republicans? Like, who is it? And dude said, Trump's the enemy. I'm glad to see we're not learning from the mistakes of the past in any way whatsoever. Like, it can't just be that Trump is the enemy.
Yeah.
Like, again, the thing that's threatened, even if
what happens when Trump goes away?
Yeah, but even if this abundance agenda is intended to be purely good, right? There's no like bad faith attack on the progressive left here from moneyed interests. You got to have a villain. And like, it's got to be more than just Donald Trump.
Trump's the villain just like reeks of like moral superiority.
Yeah.
Like it reeks of a fake moral high ground that this guy's standing on. It's just like, was it this week that Chuck Schumer went on The View and said something like, I'm fighting against MAGA Republicans, not regular Republicans. There's no distinction.
Mm-hmm.
No distinction right now. Tell me one Republican in Congress that isn't a MAGA Republican.
Well, and Chuck Schumer was like, well, when I see them in the gym and we're all sweaty, then like the assumptions fall away or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, dog.
It's like, okay, but he's still voting dumb and bad.
Yeah, it's, man, politics sucks.
Yeah.
These guys' politics sucks.
Like, sure, okay, you can go out and get dinner with this dude and have a good time and drink a few beers, but like, he's still voting to kill your grandmother. Like, that's what's happening.
And we're just in a fundamentally different position now. Like, voters are not in a position now where they can look at their politician and think like, okay, I'm cool if they just go and hang out with the opposing side now.
Yeah.
They want you to kill them. Like, the people are angry, man. People are like, are you ready for violence? And I condemn political violence.
I do condemn political violence.
But people are mad.
They should do that. Yeah, you should at the very least not be friends with these guys. You shouldn't be friends with the guy who wants to kill your grandma.
Yeah. Also, just a couple more things on this. First of all, they don't really say how they'd package this for voters. If you go out in a presidential election year and you're talking about zoning laws, that's a 500-point electoral win for Republicans.
Isn't there the whole thing of like Democratic policies poll significantly better than Democratic politicians, and it's because these politicians can't message anything.
Yeah.
No policy guide should exist without also like, at least some tips on how to message it, tips on how to package it to actually get people inspired to get off their ass and go vote. You know how inconvenient it is to go vote?
Yeah, yeah. Now, lastly, I want to read a quote from the book itself. The book has a portion where they're sort of speculating about what an abundance future could look like in America. And they do a number of things. At one point, I think they said a flight from London to New York would be 2 hours, which I don't know where they're getting that from.
How the fuck did that...
I don't know. They're just saying shit, I think, at this part.
Okay, we're just doing science fiction.
But yeah, this is just a fiction book. But there's a portion on AI. I think this perfectly encapsulates the entire message of this book, and I think shows you why it's so faulty. So, and again, this is right from the book. Quote, thanks to higher productivity from AI, most people can complete what used to be a full week of work in a few days, which has expanded the number of holidays, long weekends, and vacations. Less work has not meant less pay. AI is built on the collective knowledge of humanity, so its profits are shared.
No, the fuck it's not. When have we ever had a technological like advancement that hasn't disproportionately been beneficial to the wealthy people that owned the company?
Exactly.
Never once. In fact, every time we have these investments, we have unions who have to fight to maintain the jobs of the people who their jobs have been made obsolete.
Exactly. And that's why I said this book like isn't even about politics, because there's no recognition that to get these concessions, people had to fight and sometimes die to force corporations to change their policies. The government had to use force against them, again, sometimes violence, in order to ensure that corporations would treat their workers better or have a more fair and just distribution of the profits that they are making. None of this happened through market forces. None of this happened through like hoity-toity liberal intellectualism. All of it happened through a concerted effort to label an enemy and fight against them.
And it's like, other than, I don't know, some fucking AI-generated slop images or an AI slop movie or AI slop book that you can go read, I guess now, like, what benefits will the AI revolution reap the average worker who's now out of a job?
Yeah.
It's not like you need a robust government structure. You would need a drastic increase on the corporate tax rate for these corporations that are implementing AI to cut their workforce in half to be able to recapture those benefits and disperse them in the public sector from the private sector. And I know they wouldn't argue for that.
Yeah.
Because the only way to reap those benefits would, I don't know, own a significant portion of stock.
Yeah. Yeah. And or like the government, if we want a society in which the profits of AI or just the profits of industry generally are shared because they are the result of, the collective willpower of humanity, then again, you have to have a government force in there that will forcibly reallocate resources to those that need it. No. And that's not a part of their program. Again, there's no recognition of power structures or how they influence us. It's just a list of policy prescriptions sold as a paradigm shift that isn't actually any different than what Kamala Harris did.
Did they even attempt to think through how the average worker could benefit from losing their job to AI? And it's I understand, I bring up the point about unions and fighting to keep those jobs that have been made obsolete. And I will recognize that every time that's happened in history, fucking alarm clock dude knockers, that used to be a job that got rid of. Those jobs were eventually replaced by different sectors of the economy and whatnot. Things evolved and people could still work, but the people who used to be the people who knocked on windows to wake you up in the morning, their lives were not made better by the invention of the alarm clock. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
This AI revolution making your work week shorter, it's either going to just make you work harder in other ways or you're never going to see that money.
But that's the thing is that issue, the fact that people's jobs can be taken away and their livelihoods can be taken away.
That's the fundamental problem.
Through technological progress is a result of capitalism.
Yeah.
The fact that you can be made obsolete, your job can be made obsolete, and that means you can't feed your children is because we rely on having a job in order to survive. This plan does not call for Medicare for all.
Yep.
It does not call for universal education or universal access to the basic necessities of food or housing. This is just all market solutions for an issue that is fundamentally a cause of the market.
Yeah.
It's a source of the market.
These advancements that have made lives better in ways that aren't the most basic needs that we need to meet.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't address the core issue that if I'm out of a job, I'm out of healthcare. If I'm out of a job, I have to rely on an emergency fund that maybe I've been able to save up so that I cannot be homeless and have food on the table every night. It's just trinkets that I get to enjoy should I already have a job and should I be in a stable position. It's not substantive at the most basic level.
Yeah.
If you look at my hierarchy of needs, it's they're focusing on the one right before self-actualization because nobody's hitting that in this economy and just completely ignoring the base of it all.
Yeah.
Stupid.
And as Maslow said, you got to start with the base if you want to get to the higher tiers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just quote.
It's just the fundamental issue that we face today is not a lack of resources necessarily, but is the uneven distribution of those resources, the concentration of those resources into the hands of the few, which they use to manipulate democracy for their own ends.
Yeah.
That is the problem of today. And if your political program doesn't even have a recognition of how those power structures are built, let alone how they work, then it's not worthy of our time.
Yeah, that's just unserious.
Yeah.
It's a bit silly, really, if I do say so myself.
Bask in the glorious light of Hiddo merchandise.
Absolutely.
We have so much on offer that you can find right now at headintheoffice.com. We got stickers, we got shirts, we got hoodies, we got hats, we got everything you could possibly imagine. And it's divine, folks.
It's beautiful.
And it's one of the best ways you can support the show. So go and get some merch, bathe in the glory of the radiant Hiddo light, and support the show.
Support the show. We've got a variety of different colors. Mm-hmm. We've got blacks, we've got grays, and we've got green like money, most importantly. Mm-hmm. We love money here on this podcast.
So head over to headintheoffice.com, support the show, and get yourself some merch. Anyways, moving on from the instant classic of the abundance agenda, up there with the likes of Immanuel Kant and John Locke.
Yes.
We got to talk about geopolitics.
So we're back in our geopolitical bag. As we've all been aware, we've kind of been in a ceasefire in Gaza for the last 2 months, but that shit was fickle.
Yeah.
That shit was fickle, to say the least. And just to cut straight to the chase, this week the Gaza ceasefire did indeed end, and I can't say I'm surprised.
Yeah, I think during the ceasefire, Israel was dropping some bombs anyway, though. Yeah, so it wasn't a ceasefire, quote unquote.
Yeah, there were already strikes going on. Fire certainly was not ceased, and I mean, even before, this thing was built on rocky assumptions. Maybe assumption's not the right word, but this was built on a bad foundation. And I don't know. It just seems like news that unfortunately we could all see is coming. Specifically though, Israel explicitly broke the ceasefire and then blamed Hamas. And we're here to tell you what happened.
Yes.
2 white boys out of mid-Michigan.
And I will say, Trump promised to end the war on day one.
Yes, he did.
This war and the Ukraine war, I will say, neither war has ended.
No.
They both continue.
It kind of getting worse, too. Mm-hmm. I don't know too much about the status of the Ukraine war, but I know this one explicitly and unmistakably getting worse.
Yeah. So, I guess promises made, promises not kept.
Yes. Same with egg prices, but that's because Joe Biden killed all the chickens.
So true. Well, you know what they say, overpromise, underdeliver. That's the goal. That's what American presidents got to do.
So politicians, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But for starters, the terms of the original deal that went into effect on January 19th, just in case you don't remember, involved a 6-week temporary ceasefire where Hamas would release hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. This 6 weeks was supposed to also include negotiations between Israel and Hamas to then move into phase 2 of the deal, which would be a permanent ceasefire and withdrawal of the IDF from Gaza, and release of the remaining living hostages.
Man, this was the initial plan that Joe Biden back in last May was like, I just got Netanyahu to agree.
Exactly. And he didn't agree at all, actually. And then there was supposed to be a phase 3 that was like about rebuilding Gaza and releasing the bodies of the remaining hostages that were not alive. But I mean, we didn't even make it a phase 2.
Man, I miss Joe Biden so much. He was so funny. He just got up there and lied, man. That was awesome.
That's true.
And now we get fucking just sad and depressing AI videos of the Gaza Strip, but made into like a resort.
Now Trump. We get Trump fully committing to back Israel in just doing whatever the fuck that they want. And I mean, to be fair, also Joe Biden kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But Netanyahu wasn't citing the lack of pressure from Joe Biden as the reason why he was continuing the war.
Yeah.
He's explicitly citing the Trump administration's backing as a reason why they can keep doing the things that they're doing.
Yeah, it's absurd.
It's not that great, guys. So phase 1 officially ended on March 1st, and 16 days later, which puts us at last week, phase 2 was supposed to start, and notably it didn't, because despite having already brokered a deal, the Trump administration put forth a proposal that would extend the temporary ceasefire 50 days and demand the release of more hostages before they began talks to enter phase 2.
Okay.
Israel adopted the proposal without Hamas's approval, and I cannot stress enough that this was not part of the original ceasefire deal.
Yeah.
This was a new deal, a new thing that they were inserting in the terms because they couldn't come to an agreement in those 6 weeks. They didn't even try to come to an agreement.
Yeah.
I'll just say, give it to you straight.
They just asserted.
Netanyahu refused to engage in talks with Hamas during these 6 weeks. He refused to talk about how they were going to go into phase 2. Not much of a surprise.
Yeah.
Not much of a surprise what we got going here. According to the Times of Israel, like I said, Netanyahu refused to hold talks for phase 2. And I already personally feel like this proposal was just to see if they could get more hostages freed before they returned to fighting, because there was never going to be a world where phase 2 actually happened.
Yeah.
During the duration of the ceasefire, Netanyahu faced increasing pressure from his own coalition to resume the fighting, or he risked his ability to stay in power. We also have to consider that Netanyahu is, I think, I don't know if it's indicted. He's facing charges of like some corruption thing bad that he did.
Yeah.
And like the second he gets out of power, he's kind of personally fucked on that regard.
Yeah.
And people who get into power don't really want to lose power.
Yeah, he's incentivized to keep this war going. And again, the second phase was permanent ceasefire.
Yes.
And the moment you get a permanent ceasefire, the war stopped, and people are going to start revolting against you, especially his far right, which he's actively empowered. So
absolutely. And when the ceasefire started, Ben Gvir immediately withdrew his party from Netanyahu's coalition in the Knesset. And then, as AP reports, Smotrich, the finance minister, threatened to withdraw if the war does not restart.
There you go.
If Smotrich were, according to the Times of Israel, if Smotrich were to resolve, the coalition would just fall apart, and Netanyahu wouldn't be in power anymore.
Yeah.
So that's great. Also, according to the Times of Israel, Ben Gvir repeatedly claimed responsibility for foiling ceasefire proposals throughout the course of the war.
Bro said, I am in favor of death.
Bro is flexing his role in unimaginable evil and harm and destruction.
Man.
He said, yes, I did that. I got Netanyahu to not stop killing innocent people that every organization across the world admits has mostly killed women and children.
Man, he put his name on that and said, that's me. That represents me.
I did that. And then as soon as
crazy.
a peace happened, which wasn't even like a real peace, let's consider Israel was still sending some strikes here and there into Gaza, not a cessation of fire. Ben Gvir said, I'm out of here. I cannot support this.
You know, it's worthy to note the sort of attribution of violence that a lot of people make. Like, they will say Hamas did October 7th, and therefore everything that's happening to Palestinians is now justified.
Yeah.
But then we look at the way in which Netanyahu, Ben Gvir, Smotrich, and the other, far-right people in the government in Israel act, and people will justify that and saying, like, oh, well, it's just some extremists in government.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the leaders of the government actively making genocidal remarks, saying that they want to continue this violence, whereas Hamas, which was elected during one election where Netanyahu supported them, then is treated as like the entire group of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. It's fucking crazy.
You can't just say some people, some extremists in government, when one, it's really entire parties, and two, these are the most powerful people in the government.
It's the controlling faction.
Yeah, like I said, if Smotrich were to lead Netanyahu's coalition, Netanyahu would be out of power. But that brings us to somewhere interesting, because other factions in the Israeli Knesset have vowed to support Netanyahu if he continued with the ceasefire as agreed to, but he doesn't want to coalesce with them.
Yeah.
He also is ideologically tied into wanting to fucking kill the Palestinians.
He's pro-war, yeah.
He's pro-war. He wants this. Like, his motivations and his power is intimately tied to the war continuing, because I think there's also wartime powers or whatever going on there. And two, he's also just kind of ideologically fucks with it. And he can get away with using the excuse that, oh, he needs to maintain power because Ben-Gvir and Smotrich are the real extremists.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah.
Like, he could have done this without them, but he is actively choosing not to. He's also, throughout the course of the war, said many times that he is wholly committing to eradicating Hamas from the Strip and would not stop the war until he achieved that goal. We heard that from all the far-right members of the Israeli government.
And there are people in that government and even in our government that actively say that every Palestinian is Hamas.
Exactly. And it's like,
that's genocide.
When they say it, why aren't we believing them?
Yeah.
It's written on the wall, like, explicitly.
They don't even hide it. Like, this isn't like hidden away in secret dossiers. This isn't like memos that we just happened to capture that were made public, or people that were recorded secretly on audio that's been made public. They just say this shit.
Yeah, these are interviews. Ben-Gvir's like tweeting this shit.
They're proud. Yeah, exactly. You translate a Ben-Gvir tweet, you think it's a lost page of Mein Kampf.
we have read Ben-Gvir tweets on this broadcast that are just some of the most insane pieces of prose I've ever read.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying that, like, I do not take the position that civilians are responsible for the actions of their government necessarily.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Really,
like,
ever.
There are Israelis that have been imprisoned because they are protesting Netanyahu's government. But a lot of people in Netanyahu's government, the controlling faction, including Netanyahu himself, are interested in carrying out this genocide.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And it's like, not everyone is Israel's for this. There's an article I also read in the Times of Israel, and I was reading around. 40 of the hostages that were freed signed a thing demanding that Netanyahu end this war.
There you go. Yeah.
We have people who are held captive by Hamas saying, bro, what are you doing? There's still, like, I think like 50-something people held hostage. Why aren't we bringing them home?
Yeah.
Why are we bringing them home?
You could bring them home if you went on to phase 2 permanent ceasefire.
Exactly, but they don't want to do that because on Tuesday night, Israel began a bombardment of Gaza that raised the estimated death toll to over 50,000 people, launching one of the war's deadliest days for Palestinians since everything started.
50,000.
They have killed 50,000 people, and again, every organization around the world, including the United States Department, recognizes that most of those people have been women and children.
Yeah.
But we continue to allow Israel to use the line that Hamas is using human shields. You can't shoot through human shield, dogs. That's like the point.
Yeah. And even like the human shield argument has always been faulty. And even like the 50,000 number, I don't even think is correct now.
No, so many estimates say that it's well above that.
Yeah, we read a study a while ago that did some like modeling and mapping of the area and the bombardments and stuff that estimated like nearly 200,000 people. And that was like, what, half a year ago at some point we read that study?
By nature of the destruction, there have got to be thousands of people that are still trapped under rubble that we just haven't been able to find. Or
not to mention people that have starved or succumbed to diseases or other illnesses that they had because of lack of medication, because the entire hospital system is crippled in Gaza or just non-existent at this point.
Well, because they blew up the hospitals.
Exactly. They pulled the Joker. They blew up the hospital. Like it's remarkably evil, and we've just been along for it. Especially John Fetterman. John Fetterman just met with Netanyahu. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
There was like a video.
Oh,
of Netanyahu
yes.
Congratulating
and he
him.
gave him a golden pager.
Yeah. Same thing he gave Trump, by the way. Jesus Christ, man.
Oh, so we're regifting.
It's so yeah. It's just like, God damn, that's so evil.
And that,
I don't even know what to say.
Fetterman accepted that thing with glee too. He's like, oh my! When I heard about this in the news, I was fucking smiling, brother. This is reckless.
Yeah, I hope he gets primaried so hard.
Oh my God, I can't wait for it. I hope he goes the way of cinema, and just the Pennsylvania Democrats decide they're not going to give this guy any money. Wouldn't that be nice?
He's so terrible.
He sucks bad, man. Yeah. He sucks fucking bad. But then after Tuesday night on Wednesday, they resumed the ground offensive and issued multiple evacuation warnings. Notably, I think I had read from, the AP that evacuation warnings came out like at the same time as the invasion started again. So it's like, that doesn't really... How does that help?
Well, like evacuate to where? I mean, that's been the central question for, over a year.
Well,
what are we, almost a year and a half?
Yeah, it's evacuate to this safe zone. Actually, it's not actually a safe zone. We're going to bomb it because, I don't know, Hamas was there.
A safer zone relative to, even, there's going to bomb
evacuate to a zone that maybe we'll bomb. But right now, we're really going crazy here.
Haven't they already been caught saying, like, move to this zone and then they intentionally bomb that zone?
I think so.
That's a war crime, dog.
I think we reported on that.
Yeah.
Or they've just,
first-hand reporting. That's us.
I'm there in Gaza. They've designated zones as humanitarian zones where you'll be completely safe from bombardment, and then lo and behold, you're not safe from bombardment. Nothing they've ever said can really be trusted, except when they get out there and say that they will not stop until Hamas is completely eradicated.
Yeah.
Again, this has been the event to do the number one amount of recruitment for Hamas. So it's gonna be kind of hard.
Yeah.
And they think that every Palestinian is Hamas. Did somebody say, was it a joke that we made, or was it somebody said that like the uniform for Hamas is like Palestinian skin?
I didn't hear that. We didn't make that joke. That's crazy if somebody actually said that.
I can't remember that. Or maybe Hassan said that or something.
Okay.
Or it was probably, Ben Gavir.
Even to that point, like on the Hamas recruitment point, before the Biden administration left, Antony Blinken was like, Hamas has recruited more people than the government has killed in terms of Hamas.
Yeah.
So, like, of course, and it's not because, like, it's specifically because doing this just encourages people to join a group like Hamas.
They got nothing.
It causes radicalization when you have no hope, when you just have an enemy government that's constantly killing constantly killing your family members and people that you know. You have no choice but to take up arms.
Yeah.
Like,
you cannot expect somebody to roll over and think, oh no, maybe we should, engage in decorum.
Yeah.
That's just not what happens.
Yeah.
And continuing on with just the breaking of the ceasefire, on a statement Tuesday night, Netanyahu said, quote, "From now on, Israel will act against the militant group with increasing intensity," going on to further say, that's what I'm saying. They've already been ramping it up ever since they started, really. Going on to further say that negotiations would, quote, "only take place under fire."
Yeah.
You cannot engage in good faith negotiations with someone you want to fundamentally destroy. You can't put a gun to somebody's head and say that, no, this is fair. We're giving you a good deal. Accept the deal with your finger on the fucking trigger.
Yeah, and we're gonna kill you otherwise.
Yeah, if you don't accept this deal, we'll kill you. That doesn't. Yeah. We've been saying this for a year though. At this point,
the analysis it just hasn't changed,
and it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
It's kind of frustrating trying to come up with something different to say, but the situation is fundamentally the same. There's been no new developments other than temporary pauses in the fire.
Yeah, but for like what, 2 week
Israel
periods?
has only acted to, make Hamas seem more reasonable. I condemn Hamas.
Which is bad. I condemn Hamas. That's one of the central tenets of this podcast.
I condemn Hamas, but there was one group that did not go back on the ceasefire. And every outlet is reporting that, hey, this proposal by the Trump administration to extend the temporary portion 50 days was not in the original deal. Every outlet, CBS, AP, MSNBC, CNN is getting out there and saying Israel broke this ceasefire. It's not controversial to say that.
Yeah, Israel's broken tons of ceasefires or been the reason that ceasefires haven't gone into place. I think Hamas, last I checked, and this was a few months ago, Hamas has agreed to like dozens and dozens of ceasefire proposals.
Yeah.
Because that's the goal is to get them to stop.
Yeah.
But they're not doing it.
Israel said, no, I want to kill you. So that's very interesting. Before they straight up broke the ceasefire about a week before, Israel began denying all humanitarian aid from entering Gaza and even cut off electricity. This hit Gaza's, I think, last remaining desalination plant. So they're just cutting off clean water, cutting off electricity, cutting off anything, food, medicine, shit like that, in an attempt to pressure Hamas into accepting the alterations to the ceasefire deal. Again, that is literally putting a gun to somebody's head and saying, hey, buddy, if you don't accept this.
It's
buddy, if you don't accept
it's remaining the same. Or saying that, like, we won't agree to this ceasefire deal unless we can kill everybody. Yeah. Like, all of Hamas. It's like, well, okay, then they're not going to agree to the deal.
And it's like, why would Hamas accept a deal that makes the temporary portion of the ceasefire longer without content ensuring that the permanent ceasefire would be reached? Why would you even want a longer temporary ceasefire if your ultimate goal is to reach the permanent one?
Yeah.
Stop firing. Guys, why can't we all be friends?
Yeah, well, you said it was like a 50-day extension. Yeah, there's no guarantee that you're actually going to get there.
Yeah, it's just a 50-day extension of the temporary portions that they could do talks that Netanyahu already refused to do.
Yeah.
So why would he not continue to refuse to do them? Maybe he was busy.
I don't know. It's hard to imagine that things get like even worse in terms of bombardments and stuff like that. But my thought is just that they wanted to get the remaining hostages out and then just go even crazier with the bombing.
That's what it is. They wanted an excuse to get out, I don't know how many ever extra hostages that they could get before they just started resuming the war, because Netanyahu was incentivized in every direction to continue with the war.
Yeah.
So that's...
Yeah. I mean, they can't drop a nuke on Gaza because it's too close to like Israel proper and cities in Israel, but they can drop 2-ton bombs like they've been doing.
Could you imagine what they could do with that beachfront property?
Well, yeah, Trump is imagining.
Exactly. Trump, that's probably the one thing Trump would step in to stop them from doing. He said, whoa, now, we don't want to turn this to glass. Brother, this is beautiful. Have you seen the place?
This could be gold.
This could be gold.
Yeah.
Did you see this video? And then he shows him Trump Gaza.
Oh, my God. Yeah, he did repost it. That was just genuinely insane. Geopolitics looking bad.
Geopolitics looking real bad, folks.
World under Trump.
And we're back into it. Mm-hmm. We're back in the fray. This is our claim to fame. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man. I guess we can move on from there. We talking about institutions now?
We're talking about institutions just absolutely caving to Trump's demands. This will kick off the little extra section for us this week. So last week, Trump canceled $40 million in federal funding to Columbia University that they were set to receive, and then sent a letter of demands that they had to comply with to maybe restore funding. Maybe.
Yeah.
And these are some of the demands according to MSNBC, just like a little highlight reel summary. One of them being the university must put its Middle East, South Asian, and African studies departments under academic receivership, which would effectively give control over the program to a chair outside of Columbia University's faculty.
Fuck? Okay.
That just feels racist.
It is racist and it's incredibly discriminatory. But why are South Asia and African studies catching flack?
I don't know.
Like the Middle East one isn't justified either.
Yeah, no, but I get it in context. Like
in context and according to their like terrible agenda of discrimination, I get what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
But why are these other two catching flack?
DEI.
They're just like going after everything.
It's just like, well, we might as well hit them all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a queer studies department. I'm sure they'd hit that one too. Another one was that they would hand out expulsions or multi-year suspensions to demonstrators who participated in pro-Palestinian protests inside Hamlin Hall last year. Just the government forcing you to expel your students. Interesting. And a handful of other policies that were aimed at cracking down on students' ability to protest, not just Israel, but just kind of really anything. No more masks that are like designed to cover your face. That's going to be banned at Columbia University. Yeah. There was also a process, I think, that they said Columbia had to get rid of their judicial review board and say that the president can just unilaterally expel somebody and punish somebody. They're also having to hire special officers that will be allowed to, like, I think, remove people from protests. So
yeah, that's comforting.
That's not a good sign. This is the
party that cares about free speech, by the way.
Yeah, and like, again, remind you, like, we've not treated college students who've protested very well. Kent State.
Yeah,
to
Kent
be one
State
of them.
Police
and
fucking killed them.
This is in kind of the same line. You know, obviously it's not as bad, but we're kind of following the same lines. History doesn't repeat, it rhymes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As George Lucas once said, I think.
Usually, if you find yourself on the opposing side of students that are protesting some sort of geopolitical thing, you're probably on the wrong side.
I mean, historically, that's just kind of what's happened.
Most of the time,
That's just kind of what's happened. But it's because these are hotbeds for wokeness. You know what I mean?
Well, of course.
There's also some bullshit in there talking about how there cannot be any DEI in the admissions process.
Oh, well.
I'd like to remind everybody.
Again, catching flack for no reason.
That's also something that's just not even happening. I'd like to remind us all that, affirmative action was deemed illegal by the Supreme Court.
Specifically in college admissions.
Yeah.
Not in military college admissions or like military institutions, but in like higher education universities like Columbia.
So it's like, we're already fucking doing that.
Yeah.
This is just bullshit culture war stuff. But reportedly, Columbia announced that it will capitulate in order to begin negotiations to restore federal funds it lost. Notably, Trump is under no obligation to actually restore any of these funds, and I don't know if he actually will.
Yeah. But this is a bad sign because universities caving to these demands will mean that he will continue to do it to even more.
Oh, it's just going to spread.
You got to hold the ground.
You got to get in some legal fight at least.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
at least in a legal fight. You got millions of lawyers like ready to fight for you.
Yeah, literally on staff.
You got like $1 billion endowment or whatever.
You got a law fund.
Exactly.
Law fund. You got a law department. You could just take all the, students, no more lecture this week. They're putting together a case against Donald Trump.
And you can help.
And you can help. They're right there. Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
You guys want a clerk on a federal case or some shit? I don't know how the law works, but
fuck it, whatever, man. Who cares?
Fuck it, whatever. Guys, hit the law library.
It's field
they got
experience.
A law library.
It's field experience. Yeah, no, that's crazy. Yeah, institutions just immediately caving to Trump. That's disgusting.
It's not a good sign. It's not a good sign. So that's Columbia University. And look, I get losing $400 million is too much money for the university to be able to like recoup. Like there will be negative effects to that, but also like the fascist is taking over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got to push back.
Yeah, you have to at least try.
Like we talked about last week, you give them an inch, they take a mile.
Yeah.
You can't give an inch. Like that's the point of that saying is you can't give an inch.
Yeah. And, while we're on the topic of giving an inch, I want to switch gears and talk about somebody who gave a mile. Didn't even give an inch. They just skipped that whole step. And an issue more personal to Trump, last week, he issued an executive order aimed at targeting a law firm that was involved in January 6 prosecutions and some personal cases against Trump. Trump is literally using the presidency to target his personal enemies in such a plain and blatant way here. According to CBS, the executive order is the latest in a series of similar actions targeting law firms whose lawyers have provided legal work that Trump disagrees with. In the order, he threatened to suspend active security clearances of attorneys at Paul Weiss and to terminate any federal contracts the firm has. It singled out the work of Mark Pomerantz, who previously worked at the firm and who oversaw an investigation into the Manhattan District Attorney's office into Trump's finances before Trump became president. And then avoid that executive order that was solely penned to target them, that only named them and actively said, no, you guys aren't going to get any more help from the federal government. Paul Weiss announced it would, quote, disavow the use of DEI in their hiring and promotion processes and dedicate $40 million in legal services to support Trump administration policies.
I love just immediately caving to the fascists. That's awesome.
And that's it. And while Paul Weiss isn't the first law firm to be singled out by Trump in these executive orders, it is the first to capitulate.
Yeah.
And it's not only the first law firm to capitulate, but it has become the largest corporation to make concessions to Trump to avoid scrutiny.
Look, that is sad and pathetic, of course, that they're doing this, but it is worthy to note that Trump is using the government in the exact way that he accused Joe Biden of weaponizing it.
Yes, is this not lawfare or whatever the fuck it was?
Yeah, Trump is using the federal government to go after his political enemies or people that he thinks have wronged him.
Yeah.
It is exactly what they said Joe Biden was doing.
And it's insane to have an executive order just targeting one person, and not one person, one law firm. And he targeted this law firm because he said they give pro bono cases to fucking look at my finances. He's wielding this to go after political enemies.
Exactly.
Personal enemies.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, as long as you don't step out of line, as long as you kiss the ring and bow down, then you'll be fine. But if you dare push back, then he'll come after you.
Boy, is this kissing the ring.
Yeah.
This is so much more than kissing the ring. You could have done that. You do not have to dedicate $40 million in legal services to this guy, to advancing the agenda that he is using to fuck you.
Yeah, yeah. Literally, one of the first recommendations for opposing authoritarian governments is to not obey in advance.
Yeah.
You need to force them to force you to obey, partially because it's like a public display of force, which people will be radicalized against, and also because you might just be able to call their bluff.
Yeah.
And this guy just gave up millions. Come on, man.
This law firm just gave up services, and instead of just obeying and keeping their head down and continuing to do what they do in private and maybe stop doing, I don't know, woke bullshit.
Which is pathetic and cowardly anyway, but still,
exactly.
Yeah, sure.
They decided we are going to actively advance the cause of evil. They decided we will dedicate our talents to making evil happen more. And one of the things I think they said they dedicate themselves to is combating, I think, college anti-Semitism. So it's that just means going after pro-Palestinian protesters.
Anti-Palestine, yeah. Man, I wish it was serious though, because anti-Semitism is an issue.
That's what I'm saying.
But it's not an issue because of Palestinian or pro-Palestinian students.
No.
It's just, God damn it, dude.
Yeah. I think in one of the Columbia University demands, I think they also have to adopt a formal definition of anti-Semitism that I think includes anti-Zionism.
Oh, well, that's just fucking stupid.
That is just fucking stupid.
Come on, man. I could be opposed to a government.
That's what I'm saying. There's plenty of people in Israel that don't fuck with the government.
If I say I hate the American government, it doesn't mean I hate American people.
Exactly.
That's stupid.
That is dumb.
I hate governments everywhere.
Real.
Doesn't mean I hate the people in the government. Whatever, man.
Yeah, so it's not looking good, folks. And it's I thought the ABC dropping their lawsuit or settling their lawsuit was bad enough, because it's okay, they just instantly decided that Trump won, so we're going to stop going after him, blah, 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 give him some money. This is worse.
This is a lot worse.
Everything is getting worse.
Everything is getting worse. We're 2 months in, folks.
2 months in.
The 2-month mark was 3 days ago, actually.
Really?
So we're about to be 2 months in a week, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's good. That's good. We're approaching 100 days pretty quickly here.
Yeah. You know, at the rate this is going next week, you're going to see us coming on here and arguing against abortion. And after Trump puts out an executive order targeting all podcasters.
Yeah, I'm going to be like, actually, RFK's got some good ideas.
Guys, you know, when he went to Five Guys with Hannity and talked about the beef tallow or whatever, that was actually really good.
Well, speaking of RFK, we can talk about a few other extras here. One is that RFK Jr. said he wants to just let the bird flu spread.
What do you mean?
Just run through the bird populations in this country rather than killing the birds and trying to quarantine the disease. So actual scientists have said this would be a terrible idea because it could mutate and then spread human to human.
Yeah.
Because that's how mutations work.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. RFK said he wants
my God.
him and the director of or secretary of like agriculture or FDA, something like that. They've said that they're like in alignment on this plan and they might just try to like just let it spread throughout birds. And he also said that like wild birds aren't affected, which I don't think is true.
Yeah.
His idea was that only like the domesticated chickens and whatnot.
Are the domesticated chickens like genetically different or have such different immune systems that they wouldn't be affected? Like,
I'm not a scientist, but this does not pass the smell test.
No,
I'll say that much.
I don't think it passes the smell test either.
But I mean, if there was any policy from this administration that will make egg prices go up, it's this one.
Yeah. Like, and it's like, what does he mean wild birds? Like, I feel like wild birds is a really wide category. Like, a chicken is not a dove. You know what I mean? Like, there are jumps between species and what I don't know. I'm not an immunologist. I just know that that's just a bad idea.
Letting any disease spread is a bad idea, especially something like the bird flu, because the bird flu is pretty serious.
No, you don't get it. If all these chickens die, we'll get herd immunity.
And if it spreads enough, it could mutate, that spread person to person, and then we're really in trouble.
I had the bird flu in high school. That shit sucked. I thought I was gonna die. I had like 104 fever for like 5 days. It was miserable.
Last I checked, and again, like the CDC isn't reporting updated information now, but last I checked, it was like 70 people, I think, that had gotten the bird flu.
Nice.
Since this like whole thing kicked off like a year ago.
The pro-farmer party is going to kill chicken farmers when they contract the bird flu.
And most people that have gotten it have survived. I think almost all of them, except maybe one that had like some other comorbid issues. And most of them are people just in contact with animals, which of course makes sense. But if you let a disease run through the animal population, it might mutate in such a way where it can pass person to person. And that's when a lot of people start dying.
Dog, chicken is like the easiest, cheapest food to like meal prep and like buy.
I use chicken all the time.
That's what I'm saying. I'm always eating chicken.
Yeah, chicken products.
Also fuck with eggs.
He also, another thing he said importantly is that bird flu can't pass through food, which I don't think is true either. He's saying like eating an egg or eating like a chicken breast or something from an infested chicken isn't bad.
If you cook it, if you cook it, you're fine. But that's not the like fundamental issue.
Yeah.
Like the fundamental issue is that bird flu is running through the bird population, killing all the fucking birds. That's why egg prices are going high. Like, I mean, sure, even if it can't pass through food, which I don't think it can, that doesn't like matter.
Yeah.
That's not the problem here. Once it makes the jump to like people, or if the strain mutates and makes the jump to a person, then that person is going to spread it to other people. Like they're just more liable to do that. That's where the issue comes from.
Yeah. Also, if you just
how did we put this guy in this position?
I don't know, man. If you let it run through the bird population, it seems to me that would be sort of equivalent to just slaughtering a bunch of birds. Right?
It's this. Yeah.
I mean, they might not all die, but still.
I was gonna say it's the same thing but worse.
Yeah.
Because it's like I think what I had read when you have like an instance of the bird flu and like chickens on a farm, you have to kill all the chickens.
Yeah.
Because it just instantly needs to be quarantined. You're not really solving the issue if you just let them all die from getting the bird flu.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, that's because that's what Biden was doing to force egg prices up. It was like Mao killing all the birds because they work for the government.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So that's not good. Cook your chicken products, folks, or switch to Impossible meat or something like that. I don't know.
Not me personally. I do raw milk.
One other extra I have here is that there's an important Supreme Court race in Wisconsin that is happening not this upcoming Tuesday, as in March whatever, but the Tuesday after, I think April 1st. So be sure to vote for Susan Crawford because the other guy, Brad Schimmel, I think is his name, has received lots of money from GOP donors, and it was recently endorsed by Elon Musk.
Yeah, I was going to say, this one's big.
That's an anti-endorsement.
Elon Musk is investing like hella money in this, isn't he?
Yeah. So don't vote for Brad Schimmel, vote for Susan Crawford because I believe the fate of the Wisconsin Supreme Court is on the line here.
Oh, please do.
And they only just got a liberal majority, so
go vote. The courts, radical redemption.
Yeah.
On a wicked redemption tour
Redemption
right
arc,
now.
yeah.
Are the only thing standing in the way of Trump right now. And they're kind of barely standing in the way. Also, forgot to mention earlier when we were talking about Boasberg, John Roberts came out and indicted Trump like formally, but like
said that's bad.
Yeah. He said, don't be calling for impeachments of federal judges. What the fuck are you doing? And I just got to say, how did you not see this coming?
Yeah, and I think John Roberts is looking out at the population and recognizing that his branch of government, his institution specifically, is basically ubiquitously hated across the country.
Yeah, you think he's trying to rehab their image?
I think he's trying to rehab their image because he understands that on his watch as Chief Justice, people have begun to hate the Supreme Court and everything that they stand for, and now he's trying to push back a little bit, but he doesn't have the sauce.
Maybe he'll be able to stop Clarence Thomas from just putting out the most evil, wicked, concurring or disagreeing opinions.
I doubt it.
Yeah, that guy's.
that
guy loves the game.
I don't think
real.
he can be stopped.
Woo, yeah. So please go vote in Wisconsin.
Yeah,
that's very important.
These local races are more important than they have been in a long time. So if you're in Wisconsin, if you're a voter, go vote.
It's quite important. This next one that I have here, this next little extra is interesting one. You know, I was talking about no Social Security knows, and I forgot that I had this amazing clip by the current Commerce Secretary.
Oh, cool.
Pertaining to seniors on Social Security, and I just wanted to roll it for you all.
Say Social Security didn't send out their checks this month. My mother-in-law, who's 94, she wouldn't call and complain. She just wouldn't. She'd think something got messed up, and she'll get it next month.
Yeah.
A fraud.
What?
Yeah, wait.
Always makes the loudest noise, screaming, and yelling, and complaining.
That's right.
What?
A fraudster. What? If you're complaining about missing your Social Security check, something that 2/3 of seniors rely on to keep themselves out of poverty, you're a fraudster. It's only the fraudsters that are complaining when the benefits they've paid into their entire lives aren't given to them for some arbitrary reason or that there was a mistake. That is fucking crazy.
That is fucking insane.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I think that was the same guy that was on Fox News saying go buy Tesla stock. Because Tesla stock is tanking, and he's like, go invest in Tesla. It's not going to be this cheap for a long time.
Go invest in Tesla, and if you can't afford to make rent this month, shut the fuck up or you're a fraudster.
That guy actually fucking blows. If you miss a Social Security check, something that a lot of elderly people rely on.
It keeps 2/3 of seniors out of poverty.
The only people that are complaining are the ones that are committing fraud. That's just genuinely insane. They hate you and want you to die.
I think a lot of that clip speaks for itself, but man, it like you said, they want to kill your grandma.
Yeah, the Trump administration wants Granny on the streets.
They want her to die cold.
And I don't know why that's not the message. Like they hate you.
Why are they not like blasting that clip like all over the place? I just like luckily found that on my TikTok. And I was like, oh my God.
We should not be the ones doing Democratic messaging.
I should not be breaking this news to a significant amount of people.
I didn't hear that clip.
Exactly.
That's the first time
I just randomly saw it on TikTok.
Oh my God, man.
It's fucked up. President Trump, please save TikTok.
Anyway.
Yeah, the last extra I have here is that apparently the page on I think the U.S. military or Army's website removed information about Jackie Robinson. Yep.
Because he was the first
DEI hire. It's DEI. You can't talk about fucking Jackie Robinson without talking about DEI. Or I think they removed something about his military service or something like that from the page.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know, man. Jackie Robinson, I don't think that's a story that you can untie from race.
Yeah, no, you can't. Not at all. Are you
I
kidding?
think that's quite intimately acquainted to why that's important in the first place. And I thought it was interesting that this is an issue that can reach the sports bros, and it really has. Nick Wright?
Maybe. I probably would if I heard him.
Long hair, big Chiefs three-peat guy during the football season.
Well, that sucks to suck, dog.
Exactly. Bad takes throughout the entire football season. He came out with a good take talking about how Jackie Robinson is a DEI hire, and that's good. And that was, in fact, a good thing because Jackie Robinson's story is exemplary of why we need DEI.
Yeah.
Because DEI is not about hiring somebody who's unqualified just simply because they're black or the color of their skin or some immutable characteristic that they fall into. It's about not denying them opportunities. And Jackie Robinson so perfectly just encapsulates this idea, considering that, I don't know, he's one of the best to ever do it.
Yeah, and people that often talk poorly about DEI or say we need to get rid of it do so because they're arguing for a quote-unquote meritocracy.
Yeah.
But the whole reason DEI was necessary is because there wasn't a meritocracy.
Yeah.
Because people of color with merit weren't getting hired because they were people of color.
Yeah.
So DEI became necessary.
And this is also, Jackie Robinson, one of the most clear-cut instances. Nobody is arguing about Jackie Robinson in this way. Going and removing this information is just a pure love of the game type of decision to be made.
Nobody's looking at that webpage buried under 40 different sub web pages.
Yep, and they're like, oh, this is too woke. The Jackie Robinson story is woke. No, in fact, people are looking at Jackie Robinson and saying, oh, yeah, it was racist back then, but not now.
Yeah.
But now can we not even say it was racist back then?
Censorship in Trump's America.
Censorship
is
great. In Trump's America, we have censorship, no protest, and paying for chicken burger.
Paying for chicken burger.
Paying for chicken burger.
20% interest on chicken burger. You know what I'm saying? You miss one payment, 30% interest.
Taking out a loan for a milkshake. That's Trump's America, baby. It's ridiculous. It's what's happening right now. If that happened under Joe Biden, you would not hear the end of it from Jesse Waters.
There's so many examples of that right now. Just shit. If it happened under Joe Biden, conservatives would freak out, and now they're silent.
Yeah. Could you imagine if Joe Biden said, let the chickens die?
Speaking of the things that people just aren't freaking out about, I read a story recently where this dude and his wife, I believe, an undocumented woman, were like out of the country.
He's a Wisconsin vote, a fucking swing state voter.
And then he came back, and the Border Patrol or whatever, ICE or whatever, was like, "Are you a citizen?" And she's like, "No." And then she got deported.
Yep.
And then he was like, "Well, I understand."
he said I think he was asked. He voted for Trump. They were on their honeymoon. His wife's like Peruvian. She gets detained on reentry into the country, and he was asked like, "Do you regret your vote?" And he said, "No, I don't regret my vote." He's like, "I think the actions of ICE are separated from Trump." Brother.
That's the median voter, folks.
That guy was a swing state voter. Like, just to add insult to injury. You know what I mean? Like, I hope personally, like, I don't know, his wife gets back and isn't harmed because I'm not an evil person, but like, Jesus fucking Christ, man, what do you mean you don't regret your vote?
Yeah.
I hope she leaves your dumb ass.
They got your woman.
They got your girl.
That's your woman, man.
Like, she better leave his dumb ass. If she comes back and he's like, oh, baby, geez, I know I voted for the guy that, like, facilitated all this, but, like, I don't regret the vote.
Yeah, imagine being cucked to the administration that's raising your egg prices after your wife gets deported. Come on, man.
Like, that guy has been so uniquely fucked personally by Trump.
Yeah, like, it's partially, like, nobody actually knows how the government works.
Yep.
But it's also just like, dog, at some point, you got to take some responsibility and read the news. I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, I get it.
You got to connect the dots, man.
I understand the dynamic of this last election. I know that Democrats went wrong in some areas. I know there's lots of things going on. But at some point, you got to read the news.
We're reaching levels of median voter that were previously unseen.
It's disgusting.
We're reaching critical mass of median voter. You know, like, what is it, like the dead internet theory? I think where it's like eventually like AI pages will become so rampant that they just interact with themselves and you won't be able to ever find like real content. We're reaching the dead median voter theory. It's just like, it's just morphing into something that I can't even understand that doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah. Can't even begin to untangle that. It's a mess, man. But
you know what I can understand?
These people.
These beautiful people. These beautiful people that help support the show every week. Help me buy eggs.
That's important.
Keep the lights on in the studio. Help us disseminate the news. You know what I mean? Give tithes so that eventually their souls will be saved.
Yeah, this is a big news week.
This is a big news week.
And these people are the reason that we're here right now.
I can't imagine how expensive eggs are going to be if they just let the birds go. Like, if they just let the bird flu just run rampant.
You're going to have to take a loan out for the eggs.
Oh, I'm going to need Meyer to partner with Klarna so that I can pay in for at checkout. And then I need it to pop up, like, you know how do you want cash back pops up and it's always very inconvenient before your transaction's over. I need do you want cash back? No. And then do you want to pay in for Klarna Afterpay? But the no is in like red again, and the green is yes. So it's like, oh, yes.
Yeah,
or they flip it actually. So the yes is red because I'm so used to pressing no that I click on the red and it's yes, and
and then you don't even know you signed up for a repayment plan.
All of a sudden I'm in debt.
And then like a week later you're in debt, and it's instead of the eggs being $30, it's $100.
Well, because that's how they get away with saying like, oh, look at your grocery bill is like way cheaper now, but in fact it's been split into 4 and dispersed over the next 2 months.
And now your credit score is like 84.
Yep. Yeah. Every time you get an apartment. Every time you take out a Klarna Afterpay, it's actually a new line of credit on your credit report.
Probably.
And then you get dinged for that. And then when you finish your Afterpay, you get dinged for closing a new line of credit as well. So it's a double whammy.
Yeah, it's up for the American consumer.
Yes, it is. Credit reports are fake.
Yeah, no more credit scores. Make that illegal. Anyway.
But these are people who have beautiful, wonderful credit scores,
I love
I'm
them.
sure.
The great credit
800
scores.
plus credit scores.
Let us know your credit score in the comments below.
Drop your credit score and your SSN so I can verify.
Yeah.
We're going to run hard pulls on your credit. Just leave it in the Patreon comments.
That's right.
Special thanks to Caden Kraut, Lord Todd the Radiant, Chris the Postman, Christy Begg, Dylan B., Andrew Harris, Mike Chaplinsky, Omar Zuno, Clayton LaFed, Mark Yeager, Caleb Joy, Rich Taro, Tari, Gavin Mayer, Maldonado, Hunter W., Fergalaki, Max Vazquez, Jacob Rogers, Colin Mooberry, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Muzzy, Big Burrito, Cincy Alex, Joe Stenstrom, Adrian Sandoval, Chloe Sam 601, Colleen Cutsfer, Yook, Jennifer DeVille, Big Bird Titty, Crawfish, and Benny Bennington III, Alexia Benanti, Nietzsche, Big Booty B-Town, Sam Maloney, Two-Headed Boy, Ben Shapiro's boyfriend, Ted Cruz's boy toy, Dictator Jace, Luke O'Shea, Cucker Tarleson, Danielle Jackson, The Word of Microsoft, Jennifer Science, Aaron Hennes, Gundam Gundams, Darth Father, Tailored for Content, Corey Chambers, Ellie N, Devin Hatchard, Retro Mondo, Emma the Doot Slayer, Veronica, aka V, Raxon, Ass Smith, The Grotler, Flower Clown, Beetlebugs, Murder in a Trench Coat, Lonnie Rogers, Slavic and Sapphic, Casey Lynn Kelly, Snake Eyes, In Hope of Giants, AK Gone, Zach Lantian, Info Russell, Austin Greif, Marcus Corbett, Caleb Roper, Taylor Rensock, Cammy, Tylen Freeman, Tay Tay, Isaac Hodges, Madeline C, Kayla Lowe, Anna Valinick,
KCC, Say Yes to Wes, August, Particular Pickman, Sir Capalot, Jeff Signs, Howard the Duck, Brennan is Egg, JR, Drew Batchilder, Froggy Gumdrop, Jackie Boy, Shameless, Coherent Bibles, Sasha, MJ Sharp, Michaela Muncie, The Wallace 3000, Jared Finch, Tactical Snowflake, Son of Ander, Vanilla Bryce, Chris T, Kishan Lala, Amanda R, Hanky Panky, Tyler J, Damian Blues, Ashley White, Particulon, Memfrez, Lauren, Unchrestmatic Boar, Sasquatch, Rhonda Stiletto, Midwest Marxist, Joe the Mailman, Gary from West Michigan, Shawnee GG, Juniper Not Jupiter, Stacked Crabs, I Crowley, Urban Peach, Lord of Forlorn, Holt Forsyth, Kevin Kasaya, Schnoodle, Booty Snakes, Erica, Krusty Krab, Dew Fairy, Chelceratops, Austin Lima, Lane Waltz, Azim Fidde Hussein, Gorgeous Girl Mukes, Brooklyn G, Noverk the Dastardly, Goldthorn, Addie Book, Merlin, John from Houston, Anaya, Cryobongi, That Art Dork, Sergeant Pookie, Connor Nix, Jordan T, Kim Kitsuragi, Rose Grimm, Christian, Jamie the Young Extremist, Jack the Heathen, Archer W, Evan Mingo, AJ Torres, Elo Nico, Jake Hall, Seth Schmidt, Daniel Stock, Noah Sajas, Majo What, Ultra the Dragon, Mercy Boku, Dick Cheney and 6 Inch Heels, Luke Wechter, and my mom. Thank you all so much for supporting the show on Patreon.
You know, with the amount of support that we've been getting recently, we're going to need to start putting Hiddo Patreon tiers in the consumer price index to calculate inflation.
Exactly. It's going to be really important.
It will be.
And inflation's going up 1 billion%.
Uh-huh.
Under Trump's economy?
Yeah, mostly because of us, because we're raising prices.
Because
I kid.
We have to buy podcast equipment every week.
Yeah. You guys don't know. This mixer's like a one-time use. Once you turn it off, it's broken.
Exactly. So we got to get a new one.
And I got to buy new clothes. I don't wash clothes. So I got to buy new clothes every time I wear them.
That's right. Well, I can't wear the same fit twice.
What the fuck you expect? Like,
I'm a podcaster.
Exactly. I'm a fucking big shot.
Anyways, thanks for listening.
Have a good week.